Hey there, downtowns, downies, sitting funny, standoffish. We're gonna figure out a name for the 2.5 people listening to this show. Hey, thanks for being here. Welcome to our first ever video episode for those watching on YouTube. Trying to push to 100 subscribers on YouTube. Got like 87. Can we do it in a 3-year period? Can we get to 100? That's the push. You got to be savage with your goals. So, welcome to this episode. Really happy to interview Patrick Scott. He was great, and he is someone who's going through quitting comedy right now, through the throes of it. Coronavirus kind of putting the final nail in the comedy coffin there, while doing all the other coffins. Also, there's a lot of coffining from the COVID, but this is one of the good ones apparently. He's starting to feel the weight of quitting being lifted, yet he's not sure if it'll stick. There's a lot of talk of relapsing, so you never know. We all could at any moment. But this is a good episode for a comedian that is going through the throes of quitting. Next week, actually, we're going to have a comedian that's essentially flash forward 10 years, who did quit and has not looked back and is living a great life. So it's going to be an interesting arc for these 2 episodes. Anyway, I appreciate you. Do your best, or just try. Trying matters. Just try. Thanks. I appreciate the toots out of you. Let's get officially started. Welcome, Patrick. Welcome to Stand Down. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I'd heard Jay Lopez told me we were doing this, and I was like, man, I'd like to be on that.
Yeah, it just the concept got you. What about it resonated?
I'm just obsessed with that right now because I think I would still be. I think I could still be categorized as doing it. Comedy.
With the you're flirting with the idea. Like you're our first podcast guest who is in the very throes of ripping themselves apart from the comedy identity that they have lovingly constructed. How long have you been in comedy?
7 years. So it's not that long.
That's long enough to say that that's not that long. I think once you're over that 5 hump, there's certain lessons that you'll learn that an under 5 comic won't. But good. I'm just saying the modesty goes a long way. The more seasoned comics I'm with, the more they discount their time in comedy.
I just always have a hesitation of making sound anything I've ever done comedy-wise sounding important. Like I never want to make it sound like like it's all. When I say 7 years, that's a lot of time in crappy bars, doing jokes to nobody. There's a lot of that. So I always try and not make it too. So I think some people like to pad their ego a little bit, make everything they sound grand, and I almost do the opposite, where I downplay almost everything.
I much
for better or worse.
I much more understand and sympathize with your version of it. I too scratch my head when I see people so confident and so full of just like assurance that they are the next comedy coming, and I feel like you need a certain amount of self-doubt and self-scrutiny to achieve a certain level of comedy or any art, really.
I wonder if Kevin Hart ever doubted himself.
Do you right? Right. He's a perfect example.
I feel like the killer people are like, he was never. Because I like listening to him talk. I always think he's I could learn a lot from just in life from that guy. But he always seems like that guy has some gear that some people just don't have. And it's like, I can't ever even dream, even like in a local comedy way, replicate that kind of hustle. Because I don't want to work that hard. That's, and there are people around even just the local comedy scene who have that kind of hustle. And I'm always, makes me tired, thinking about working that hard.
Yeah.
And like getting to the point where you're working so hard, I think there's some vulnerability there too, where that I don't like. I like to have some distance from my failures, where it's like, oh, maybe I tried hard, maybe I didn't. But if you're giving it your all and you fail, that's fucking hurts. And I might avoid. I might be trying to avoid that a little bit.
That's definitely one of the mind fucks of comedy. In that, before you even started comedy, did you have that moment where you said, "Well, I've got to give it a try. I can't not I can't die and not have tried this.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where you're like, wait, I tried it, but did I really try it? Did I try it
Yeah.
enough of the try that
Yeah, and I think that's the heartbreak that I'm going through right now of like knowing that it's probably better to stop doing it for a lot of reasons is that it's like this was a dream I had and it would tear me apart like a real deep hurt if I just knew that it was over.
mm,
Like I don't know if I ever thought I was going to be like a big famous comedian, but I always thought that I don't know. Maybe when I started, I wanted more out of it, and now that it would break my heart knowing that that would never happen because I quit. And I think that's one of the things that stops me from quitting is killing a dream
hmm,
and
right,
just the
putting the
heartbreak that
final
comes with
nail in the
that.
coffin.
Yeah, just saying like, I'm too old, or it's like if you were trying to be a model and you never became a model, and you're like 48 years old, you're never going to become a model. You're too old.
Well,
It's like,
therein lies, there's similarities, but the crucial difference in that your face and your comedy age entirely
yeah,
differently.
that's the other thing that keeps me might want to stick around. I think like 55 might be a sweet spot for me.
Right?
Like bald, angry.
You might be in that Lewis Black category,
Yeah.
kind of the Roseanne thing or whatnot. Uh, yeah. Well, when was the
Could
last
be.
time you did stand up?
Uh oh man. It was well so I'm still kind of active. At least I mean
Yeah.
quarantine. Uh
Right. I mean,
so
everyone's been
probably
forced to quit, and I'm not interviewing
yeah.
those people. I'm only interviewing people who have before have legit quitting cred before we were forced to quit.
Well, it's kind of a
Not
testament to
quitting, but
like,
you're flirting with quitting. You were,
oh,
you
I'm
know.
going to. It's just I feel bad about it. It breaks my heart
Right.
that I have to because
Uh-huh.
it's way more sensible to quit. I think
Mm, sensible.
yeah, I think it's like a drug, and I'm to the point where I know the drug's bad for me, but I still really want the drug. That's where I'm at right now. It's like
Mm.
the drug makes me sad and frustrated, but I still like the drug, and I know I need to quit the drug, but god damn it, I like the drug. That's where I'm at right now.
Did the drug at one point heal things or have there were more positive effects of the drug that have now that you've grown a tolerance, that those positives are gone?
Oh, so like they were good early on, but are no longer good
Like all the
things.
classic cliches of comedy helps you get in touch with yourself, get more comfortable speaking,
Yeah,
develop a skill set that most people don't have.
yeah, yeah. For sure, because when I started, I'm still very kind of quiet and not good in social situations, or you know, going into a bar and just like making conversations with people. I'm still not good with that.
Mm.
But 7 years ago, I was like hobbled and not capable of communicating myself very well, and
Hobbled.
not that and it still holds me back a little bit. Like I'll try and do like stuff for my job, like meetup kind of things, and I still have the tendency to be too afraid to attend them.
Mm.
But thanks to comedy, I've kind of gotten better at being okay with that discomfort
Right.
because I put myself through that for comedy. So comedy's helped me out so much, like made me a better person in so many ways,
Cool.
because it just forced me to be uncomfortable.
Right. So you develop that thick skin or thicker.
Yeah.
And along what point in that 7 years was that benefit less of a big deal? And now all of a sudden there are these other things that are pulling you either away from comedy or starting to doubt comedy. What was that process of starting to walk away?
I think you just see less, or like, I don't know. It's the lack of reward, I think. It's like I have this hobby that I love that I put a lot of time into, but getting older, I realized that time is the most important thing I have in life. Is like your time and how you spend it. And it's like, man, would it be more beneficial to me in my life if I wasn't at a bar telling jokes for 5 minutes and waiting 3 hours to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it stopped me from getting past that point where maybe I have more booked gigs, so that I don't have to do that. That never happened. It's just you do that for so long. It's like this seems like I could be better spending my time. Like if I was doing sit-ups all the time that I was waiting an open mic, I'd have great abs. And then like I'm sitting there going like, man, I could be working on my abs right now.
All
Or
right.
like or like working on my portfolio for my job, and maybe that means I don't have enough passion, or like I'm not bought in enough to actually risk enough to actually pursue it wholeheartedly. I've always been one foot out kind of guy, and I think that's really hurt my progress as a comedian, is because I'm not risking it all. I'm not going like, I'm quitting my job. I'm making
Right.
my money through comedy, sink or swim. I never have the courage to do that, and I think that's why, I don't know, other people, I might not have grown as much as I could because I didn't force myself to do that. And for better, like, I'm glad I didn't do that, probably,
Well,
because that's hard.
that's something I'd like to dig into. Cat, get away.
Damn, cat.
The I like to kind of play with the multiverse sometimes and imagine
Yeah.
what
Ooh.
would that have been like? What if you had, in your terms, you didn't feel like you fully committed? What would a fully committing looked like?
Wow.
And what would you be like had you done that for 5 or 7 years? Because in this world, it's increasingly hard to do comedy without some sort of job.
Yeah.
And bless you if you can scrounge by and do it. But
Yeah.
most of the people I talk to, they can't develop comedy when they're worried about if they're going to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So again, what is fully committing to comedy in your eyes?
I wonder, because there was a time. So the reason why I started doing comedy was because when I got out of college, I couldn't find a job really quick, and I just kind of had all this aimless energy, um, and I kind of dedicated it to comedy. So I wonder, I don't know, man. I still don't think I'd be that much farther along in my career.
Well, we'll say
Like,
instead of having a job, you threw passion to the wind, or caution to
yeah,
the wind rather, and you said, I'm gonna work from gig to gig, and I'm gonna start hustling, trying to get road gigs. I mean, is that the alternative? Like, how, what is fully committing, and what is banging your head against the wall in a struggle that doesn't have long term like survivability?
and I think I would just had to have been comfortable with that, like, medium of like just barely scraping by and doing road gigs and stuff like that. But even, I feel like I heard someone say there's like no middle class in comedy, and it's very true. It's like you're either there's some people barely making it by, and then there's some people who are just making a great living doing it, and there's not really a strong middle class. So I think my wife and I would if I did commit everything to comedy, I think we would have a way different lifestyle.
Hmm.
And like, and it would have been too much of me to ask of her. I think that was always the thing that I, because I've been with my wife for a very long time, and I've been with her this whole time, when I've been doing comedy, and I was always conscious of like, okay, I have this thing that I like to do and that I really enjoy, and I was always hesitant to ask her to sacrifice too much for me to do it. And and I don't think I would ever do that. Like, I don't think I would ever want to make sure, I'd rather have her stability in life is important to me. And so, God, I can't even imagine saying like, hey, I'm quitting my job and I'm doing comedy, because I really don't think I could make it, because I think the numbers are too low. Like, how many people are out there giving it their all and actually being like crazy funny,
Mm-hmm.
and not putting, like, there's more than I even know. Like, I see these people
Right.
on podcasts all the time. I'm like, this person's hilarious. I've never heard of them. And there's just a million of those people. And that's the other thing why I quit too, or I'm quitting, or I'm in the process of quitting, is I just constantly stumble across people who I go, how is this person not, more famous? And this person's so much more funnier than me and is struggling. And I don't have the confidence in myself to think that I could do better than those people, because I'm like, these people are fucking crazy talented and they're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust myself to have the talent I'm just saying, I don't have the talent to be better than these people. So I'm not going to fucking throw
You're
my hat in
sure
the
of
ring.
that?
Oh, yeah, probably. I don't know. Maybe if I gave it my all.
Right.
That's
I
the
mean,
weirdest.
there's that
That's
delusional
weird.
aspect you kind of need to be able to convince yourself that everyone in the world
Yeah.
needs to hear what you have to say.
Well, delusion becomes the truth so easily. Like, if you just believe you're really good, and that confidence could make you grow a lot quicker than someone who's like trying to cut themselves off the knees because they don't
Right.
believe in themselves all the time.
Yeah.
So I think there's
There's a
two
fine
sides
line.
of it. Yeah, and I don't know, man. I just It just the thing is, I know I need to quit, and it just breaks my heart because I love it. I do love it. I really enjoy it. I remember I was on a camping trip when I was a kid, and I had my grandpa take me home early because I wanted to watch Jay Leno's monologue because something had happened that
Mm,
night, and I wanted to hear what Jay Leno had to say about it because I was a big Jay Leno guy. I'm
hot
probably
take.
like the
So
only
was I
person.
before I developed maturity.
I loved it, man. I was,
No,
and so
he's great.
I've always loved it, and I have, and that's what's hard about it is I do want to keep it doing it, but I don't like. I would hate to have to do it like once every 3 months and be that person who's like, you're never gonna get a good. You're always gonna be reheating stuff. You're never gonna actually get momentum creatively or
Mm,
performance wise.
yeah.
It's if you do it 3 months, like I would have to do it at least once or twice a week, and that's still a lot to ask
Hmm.
of my time and stuff. So it's like I'm just I
So,
know
so
it's
the idea of being a hobbyist is revolting to you?
a little bit personally because I know this kind of addresses the question you had before is like I know that I could be better if I worked harder or if I
Mhm.
dedicated myself more because a little bit I have like I work pretty hard for a hobbyist and I've seen a lot of growth that I'm very proud of as a performer. And I think that if I, that's everything. It's hard. I know if I put in the time and work hard, I will continue to get better because I have confidence in myself in that way.
Mm.
But then like, I don't know if it's worth it.
Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of like cost benefit analysis here, return on investment.
Is it too soulless? Is it too like,
No, I think it really has to do with age because that's kind of the reason I'm here too now.
yeah.
I'm, through my 20s, I did comedy and there was a certain fearlessness about it. And then my 30s hit me hard
Oh yeah.
and just things that I had always been comfortable with, like mortality, suddenly bubbled up in weird new ways. And
Yeah.
considering all these other things, like this is something I want to dig into. Is you have a wife and kids? I have a girlfriend, but I'm at the point now where I'm starting to think about that kind of life stuff, and
Yeah.
that's essentially what got me to feel a little, not only pushed me away from comedy, but eventually pushed me to stop feeling bad about it because not only is comedy always there and it'll be there, but you get to redefine your relationship with comedy
Okay.
in a way that comedians don't. And there's something about quitting comedy that almost feels more comedy than doing comedy because now I'm off stage looking at those comics, making fun of them in a way that comics make fun of everyone else, but with that comic knowledge. And I'm still not myself officially quit either. I still write and do all kinds of stuff and flirt with the idea of going to mics once in a blue
Yeah.
moon. But you know, there was a long process of really beating myself up and questioning myself. What have I done? Am I really? I'm
Yeah.
throwing it all away. It's a waste. Does it mean nothing? Um,
How
I mean,
much of that is internal, or how much of that is how other people view you? You know what I'm saying? Like, how much of that is like, I don't want, I'm trying to figure out how to best to say this.
mhm.
Um,
I,
like, okay, keep going.
well, I kind of get what you were saying because what I was going to ask was a fairly vain or just at least personal question. Like, when do you? Because I did comedy with you many times for, I guess, at least five. I was here. I've been here for 5 years. When did
Mm-hmm.
you, if at all, notice me fade away, or like, is that something you noticed just as an exercise of do people notice that stuff?
I would notice it just because I would just notice how you, yeah, actually, you had an interesting way of coming and going a lot. And then you would be like, then you'd come and be like really funny. And then you'd disappear. I'm like, where the fuck that guy go? And then the other thing too is when you would show up, you'd have good premises too. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Some people come back and aren't funny, and you were just always fresh funny. And I always thought that was very impressive because it's like this person could pick up and be funny,
I appreciate,
even with
right.
maybe a little
Like
dust.
the wrong parts, like the parts that need to be worked on are obvious. Like the stuff we're worried about is there, right? Like the funny bones intact, and then just like getting warm and getting loose and getting
Yeah.
that season. Well, I appreciate, I guess, what you're saying on that, and think of like what I'm bad at taking compliments. But
Can I make you more uncomfortable? Should I give you more confidence or compliments?
I'm trying to like, because part of this podcast, it's so vain. Like I've done
No,
podcasts
totally. This whole
before
thing is vain.
where I'm
That's
like,
why I wanted.
yeah, exactly. Stand up itself is vain. And now it's like this kind of glamour project about, but it's not a glamour project, obviously, because those are for successful people, first of all. And
But I wanted to. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I wanted to talk about somebody with this, but I didn't want to burden anybody with such a self-important conversation. You know, like I didn't
right.
want to. I don't want to burden my wife with a conversation about how I love telling jokes to drunks in bars and how it breaks my heart. You know, and I feel like it's so. I'm so self-conscious
I mean, yeah,
of.
it's a personal thing. And if you were talking
Yeah,
about it to everyone and boring
it'd be
them, then
insufferable. I've
that would
met
be
those
one
people.
thing. Yes, that's the worst.
Yes.
But this podcast is a safe space for venting, which is a
Yeah.
healthy way to get hot air out of you before you explode. Not whining. We're not just circling our wheels and banging our head against the wall, because that's, I think, what a lot of people get caught up in doing, because comedy chews a lot of people up. And I think it
Yeah.
takes a certain maturity in comedy to be able to take that step back and notice that. Like how you said, do I want to spend all night in a bar for that 5 minutes? When that 5 minutes used to be the highlight of my month, now that 5 minutes is like a pit stop, a very big speed bump on my way home to like this greater life that I'm living.
Yeah.
And
I think in getting perspective outside of that bubble too. I think so many of my opinions about these things are within the comedy perspective. Once I take a step outside of it, I go like, oh man, that's kind of all this stuff of like worrying about getting booked on shows and making sure I have new bits so people don't judge me, and like
posting
the
on social
hierarchy.
media. Oh, the
Yeah, and
hierarchy of comics. Oh yeah.
Once you get out of that bubble and you could see it from a new perspective, you realize there is some silliness in it that's probably not good for your mental health. Because I think one of the best things about if I were to quit comedy is to get off social media entirely. Because part of me is on there because you get booked on shows through there, and if I could get rid of comedy and social, I'd have to do both at the same time. Very much so, because if
there's no middle ground where you can be a human on social media. It's such a necessary evil for comics now, huh?
It'd make me so jealous being able to see everyone doing shows and me not.
How many likes that person got with their low effort post just because they're connected and well liked.
I was talking like maybe a few years ago about somebody who was thinking about quitting, and they were like just drunkenly, furiously saying everything they were mad about, and the culmination was, and this person got so many likes for this post. And it was clear how important even the hierarchy of like Facebook likes weighs on comedian psyche. And I hate that too. I feel it. I will 100% admit to feeling that too. In any way, like I've been sad at people getting booked on digital comedy shows and me not, and I have no interest in doing a Zoom comedy show.
Right.
But I'm jealous that he got it. It's like there was some joke. It was like, God, what was it? It was like, oh God, I can't remember. I'm bad. I remember jokes, but I can't tell them very well. It's like, I'm either going to kill myself because you invited me to the party because I hate parties, or I'm going to kill myself because I'm sad you didn't, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that where it's like, man, I want to get invited to a party, but I don't want to come. I just want the invite.
Sure. A classic no-win situation that comedians love.
Yeah. Yeah. But so that whole hamster wheel of worrying about people and who's better and who's advancing and stuff, I just really don't like how it makes me feel.
Yeah. Did you get to a point where you started climbing that ladder, getting booked on better shows, being in green rooms with people and starting to hear people let loose and talk shit about other comics or all that kind of stuff?
Not enough. I love fucking gossip. I mean, if I could keep comedy and gossip, I'd love the gossip, man. I really do love that we have this small community where people, yeah, man, that's great.
You were just saying the social and the hierarchy stuff is maddening, and that's a big part of it. So, but you like that part of it.
It's duality of the drug, man. There's good, there's bad. I do love the gossip. Like when I mean, you can't tell me if there's a good Facebook comedy battle going on. You don't go like, "Ooh, let's look at these freaking comments."
Oh well, yes, of course. Yeah,
it's a bad drug.
Yeah, there's some documentaries that could be made about Facebook social media battles, and
that might be a hilarious sketch.
I would like to interview some of the people involved in like some of the big Denver ones that went on a few years ago. Because
I would hate how much energy those people would bring to that conversation and passion.
Yeah.
Like, you guys can't get over this shit that was on Facebook. Like,
there'd be some prep on my part to have to like keep a certain tone and prepare for, a certain level-headedness and retrospective kind of aspect.
Yeah, you'd have to watch like some fancy debate. Like, you'd actually have to have solid speech and debate rules. Like,
yeah.
you give a speech, you give a speech, then we have a mix up this part, and then we go. Like,
no debate. Yeah, no, I just interview the gals one-on-one.
That's interesting. But yeah, it's like that's all part of it, and all stuff that's
baseball.
like kind
of yeah. But yeah, that scene stuff. So more stuff that you're essentially wasting your energy on, that you want to use your energy for things like not disappointing your beloved partner and being a good father, which is something that's recently happened.
Yeah, and I think the baby thing's I don't have to say a giant game changer for like perspective and stuff, because I think my wife did at certain points have to really, I don't know, be kind to how much she let me do comedy all the time. Like, I remember she would always sleep on the couch until I got home because she didn't want to go to bed without me. So she'd always have to fall asleep on the couch because I was getting home at like 1 or 11. And then from there, we would go to the bed because she didn't want to go in the bed without me. And just other like things that she had to do where she was very generous, that I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to do that with a kid.
So you weighed on you, because there's certain comedians, and maybe it's the more delusionally confident ones, that completely neglect their spouses and kind of like, they're like,
oh, no.
They put their foot down and say, hey, this is what I do. This is who I am. Whether I started while you knew me or not, whatever, but prepare to be disappointed. And you just said, no. Like, you could see the concessions being made and how they started to grow as time went by. The allowing you to go out for a night became, or not allowing you, but agreeing as a couple that this is like how you're going to spend X amount of hours a week. Those hours dropped.
Yeah, and she was always very generous and very giving with that. But I always had a rule that if she said, hey, can you please stay home, or I got a sense that she wanted me to stay home that night, then unless it was like something really important, that I just immediately nixed it and made sure that I was there and then spending time with her. So I think I've always had a good rules, like a good rule set where I wasn't making, I was never putting comedy before her. And
you don't regret you don't regret maybe envisioning a thing where like you can just throw everything at comedy, that full, like you alluded to earlier, had you given it 100%, or what would, right? Because it's like, you can't imagine that 100% because it would be so unlike your character to manipulate your environment to give you that 100%, because it would be like depriving your wife of the love and attention you normally give her, and your job of the attention you give it, and your anything else you'd like to do as a human. Comedy demands all, and will take every hour you give it, every second.
And I think part of the reason why I have such a hard time when you ask me like, what does that 100% look like, and what is your life, what does that alternate reality look like? I have trouble even comprehending it in my mind, because my mind has trouble comprehending a universe where my wife isn't with me and isn't an important part that I have to.
Wow. So she's not even in that picture, right? It's not like she's the super supportive partner who's just giving all her energy to you. You're like, nah, I'd probably be single because I'd be a dirtbag who wouldn't be able to give affection to another person.
I just can't remember. I can't imagine a universe without her. My brain has trouble imagining that, and I don't want to imagine that too. So that's why it was always in the background, is because a comedy was always in the background, is because I did have something I knew that was was more important than comedy. I think maybe that hurts a comedian when the most important thing in their world isn't comedy, because it's as much as I love it, it's never been the most important thing to me. I've always had other things in my life that were more important to me. And so it's always been a hobby that I have passion for, but it's nothing.
So you've always considered yourself a hobbyist, in a way.
God, I think it holds me back because I self-define as a hobbyist, but I've always since I'm not putting it
You
all,
walk the line, I think, because I think you're being a little modest.
maybe, but I always, someone who's out there trying to like make their living doing comedy would categorize me as a hobbyist because I'm not.
Oh boy, those hustle people. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll make you feel inferior if you let those people. Oh man, I'm out every night, 17
Oh,
mics a week. If you're not doing that, you're not doing comedy, brother. It's like you are crumbling. You're rotting from the inside out, good person. You
yeah.
must, you know. I think that's part of the game, though, too. Is there's a certain class of comedian, whether it be their personality type or how young you are as a comedian, where you just fall head over heels in love with comedy, and you need to shout that from the rooftops. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just, it's almost like coming of age. I love comedy so much more. Do you guys understand? Do you understand how much I love it? It's like, okay, yeah,
I think that's more of a teenage infatuation with comedy than like an honest love, or like
I think
I think
that's
some
years
people love the
two to
community.
four a lot of times,
Yeah.
or one
Yeah.
to three.
And I was never the person, like I always wanted to go out a lot, 3 to 4 times a week, but I was those people who were like, I did 20 mics in a week and that was good. I was like, well, I saw you at many of those mics and you were doing the same bit over and over again and not like learning and growing in between each one.
Mm.
And so that's just always such a dumb thing. Like I'm just going to go rack up numbers like it's a high score thing. It's like, well,
Right.
work smarter, not harder. Like if you could be way more productive and with half that work if you do it the right way, if you're smart about it. And and I've gotten pretty good at like, cause I try and limit my time at mics now. So I get there early to get high up on the list and I listen to my sets afterwards and I make sure that I'm making good time or good progress with the little stage time that I want to be up there with. And I'm always trying new bits out at mics because I know that that's what they're for rather than trying to get like, you see people now or like who are starting just looking for like, okay, I need to get the laughs and stuff. Whereas now I've kind of honed it down better of developing material at mics by having like, okay, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to make these adjustments. And so I've worked out a decent process of developing material through crappy mics that are not worth the time sometimes. But it's like, God, it's
which is what, like 50% of mics generously
are not worth going.
Like crappy mics. But when you might not be able to get something from a crappy mic, but someone else might have a lesson that they need to learn from that crappy mic.
Oh, for sure.
But
some people are going to those things and not learning anything and then convincing themselves that they got something out of them. When you just be realistic, and sometimes it is worthless.
So when is a hobbyist just a comedian who is working smart?
When is a hobbyist?
It's like, oh, I did 8 hours worth of comedy this month. I'm a hobbyist. Oh, I did 10 hours worth of comedy. No, I was just going to mics efficiently and using my writing my material at home and honing it to a certain level before I take it to the mics because you're a more seasoned comic.
Yeah. I don't know.
It might just be attitude. It might just be.
It could be.
Yeah.
Me calling myself a hobbyist might be me distancing myself from too much emotion. I don't know why I call myself. I know people work harder than me, and I know people have more skin in the game,
right,
than me, and that's why I call myself a hobbyist.
So there's a certain like respect and humility for the game itself, which
a little bit.
You might say that the people who are hustling hard might not even have that respect for the game because they're so eager to crowd the airwaves and pollute the environment with their maybe not the best comedy because they're so focused on blasting it out. They're not self-criticizing and refining.
Yeah. Well, I think part of me calling myself a hobbyist has at least maybe too much self-awareness applied in it. I think that helps me as a comedian is that I am very self-aware. When I think some people, especially new comics, are completely unself-aware about how the world is viewing them and like how fucking crazy they are, or they think they're Doug Stanhope and we all see that you're just a drunk asshole.
Right.
And so I think the self-awareness has helped me a little bit, but also, I do downplay everything. I'm just like a negative Nelly. And I've been trying to get better at that so much, but I just have such a bad, or at least a negative skew on the world. Like one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be happy today. I'm just going to think happy thoughts and not negative thoughts. And it was amazing how different my day was when I did that. But it was like holding in your gut the whole day. Like I couldn't do it for very long. I was just
Interesting.
like, man, I got to get negative.
Right, it's a muscle you have to flex, but
Yeah,
right,
I'm a
you get to
negative
decide.
person.
You get to decide how you react to things, and you know, it sounds like part of the dilemma or the fallacy of comedy is like, it sounds like if you aren't successful at it, then you have wasted your time.
It's natural to feel that way, though. I mean,
It's
but I
well,
don't feel that way at all, though,
mhm.
because I did grow as a person. And I'll tell you one of the things that I've been most proud of is like, I remember I was writing jokes when I very first started in my living room, and I was like walking around, like coming up with riffs in my head and being very natural. And I was nowhere close to doing that on stage. And I did that recently. And I was like, that's my biggest achievement I ever had in comedy was getting to the point where I was as natural in my living room as I was on stage. I'm like, is that my brass ring that I get to grab? And I think it really makes me feel good. And maybe that is what the whole 7 years were about, was just that was that brass, I it wasn't anything I could hang up on a wall or point to or anything tangible, but it was like a sign of a lot of hard work accomplished, is that I actually did that and was as natural on stage as I was in my living room. And I'm like, man, was that my fucking walk off? Like, was that my moment where I walk off going like, dude, I did it.
Interesting.
I don't need to chase like a fucking TV show.
Uh-huh.
I don't need to chase, being at a past the comedy club. I, was actually 100% in a flow state on stage, being myself and doing really well. And I was like, man, I had to take a moment and go like, man, that was because of hard work. That was because of all these shitty mics and all these things that I got to have that experience of like being a good comedian. And you just chase that dragon.
Dude,
like
that's
I bombed the next
significant.
night.
Congrats. I mean, that's, to be able to even recognize that moment is significant.
And being I downplay everything, but
Especially for a negative
I let
Nelly,
myself, yeah.
as you self-described.
But it was such a good feeling, and it was all because I had worked hard. I did all those things, but I'm like, okay, is that my ultimate goal? And if I'm trying to like look for goals within rather than from the outside world, then yeah, that was a major achievement that I did that night. And if that's all I get out of it, I'm actually I had so much fun. Like if that's what the ultimate goal was, then I'm glad I got to experience that, because some people will never experience that kind of thing of like being in a flow state, a performing flow state,
Right.
and really being and having like a bunch of work pay off in that moment. Like if that's all that comes out of this, out of 7 years of hard work, I'm
That's
actually
huge.
makes me feel good,
Right.
because I was like, man, that's how much I love this shit.
It sounds like a movie or something. It's
Yeah.
like a 7-year journey to become as funny on stage in public as you have been your whole life personally among those who know and love you. To be able to just return to that. Like you're so funny, and then you start comedy, and then you immediately take 1,000 steps backwards in being funny. And then like to get
so
back to zero is significant.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. It's to get back to zero was the hardest thing to do. And it's like, I just remember being that person thinking about this has made me think about the person I was when I started. And I was so scared of everything comedy related. And I'm kind of going into a bar and talking to people.
On stage
I remember,
off.
Yeah, I remember going into Kinga's one night, and it was just like every comedian that scared me was right there when I opened the door, because Kinga's bar is right there. And I like did a fucking 180 and left because I was so intimidated.
You just left immediately.
I flee. When I get scared, I run. And I just like, I remember.
Hey, it's one of the big two, flight.
Yeah.
It's good to know which one you're going to choose. It's not good to have to figure it out.
Never. I'm never going to choose fight. It's flight or flight. Like I can't imagine a situation where I don't.
Very fast flight. All right.
Yeah, it's either flight or just stand panicked, frozen, waiting to get mauled by whatever.
Well, now you have the just run myself or protect the family thing. You got a whole new wrench in the works for you.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Babies are really slow.
He's getting fast though. It's crazy. Like they grow so quickly. And that's another thing that just kind of breaks my heart. And I don't want to miss any of it, is because they grow up so quickly and you're like really proud for every little step they take. Like, literally he's starting to take steps, but also breaks your heart a little bit because you know that you're never going to get that earlier stage that you were in love with back. And so that's another thing where it's like, man, I can't be at an open mic when my kid walks for the first time. I can't be doing something that I don't know that's, I don't know, worth it when I have stuff that I'm going to hate if I miss. Yeah. No, and it's never, it's, I can never envisioning, at least I hope I don't choose comedy over him with those things. And I'm not good, I haven't, maybe if it was my job or if I was like on the verge of something, maybe I could justify that, but.
Because there's plenty of people who do. There's plenty of people going, oh, he walked cool, baby. I'll check out his 18th step later tonight.
Yeah, and maybe it's good for them. Like, it could be good for them. I'm not going to.
I'm just playing devil's bad advocate.
Yeah. But like, and I could have seen myself maybe being that person, like, but having been a dad for a little bit, I really can't. Like, I really want to be there for those things. And I think other people, depending on their position, it makes sense. But for me, and like I have a career outside of comedy, it doesn't make sense at all. But God damn it, I still love it, though.
So what hurts so bad about stopping when you've already had such a mixed view of your efforts versus what to expect out of it? You didn't have these crazy ideas that you were expecting to have your own HBO special and you'd spend all day fantasizing, but yet stopping comedy slightly more than you're doing it is giving you great, anxiety or pain of some kind.
It makes me sad, man. It feels like a death or a breakup because I like it so much.
Are you gonna keep in touch with comedy?
No, it's one of those relationships where you have to delete the account.
Oh no,
you could never have any contact
on the comedy.
No, man, I have to you have to fight. You got to burn everything.
Ooh, you could be on every Zoom virtual show in the country, just burning through them all in a downward spiral.
But yeah, dude, it's. I will completely detox from it. And I think I'll be better for it, but it will be hard. But I think the hardest thing is like I think of funny bits, and I'm like, man,
what do you do with it?
What do I do with this? I love bits. Like I'm a joke guy, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny bit. It's an interesting perspective. And if I'm not doing comedy, then there's no. How does this thing get life beyond
That's a great
brain?
Question. You've flexed this certain muscle that's now you've created an active voice in the chorus in your head, and now that you've taken away that voice's ecosystem, how do you reapply it? How do you redirect it? The comedy voice can be very scathing, can be one that tears down, one that addresses inadequacies and inequalities. And when you turn that 100% on yourself, that can be pretty rough, or the people around you.
Yeah, man. I already do that a little bit though. Like my wife and I were watching the NFL draft last night, and I couldn't help but I don't know, make jokes about every goddamn thing that was happening. And I think it was pent up comedy energy.
Yeah.
I think it was like, man, that guy's got a silly hat. Hey, give me some laughs.
I got a riff on that.
Got a riff, man. I'm got my riff muscles.
You're kind of a comedy vampire now, where you'll have to every once in a while stalk through the darkness and release a torrent of bits and gags before you
need some comedy methadone.
It's like a werewolf or so. Yeah, this is dark thing.
But maybe I could transition into something. Like maybe those silly thoughts don't have to die on the vine. Maybe there's some other place where I could put them that's a little bit better. Like maybe I could do online skits or something. I don't know, man. Like maybe there's a better way or a better spot for those, or comics or something like.
Right. Do you feel like those things would be lost if you were just happy being funny? Like if you're at the very base bones, what you're going to just do is be a funny person at some points, either hopefully not too much on, but hopefully just now comedy has taught you to be an even funnier person than you've been before. But is it a shame when you come up with those bits and now you're like, what can I put it? How do they
get out? Yeah. Well, the thing too is I'm not a funny person in real life. Like I'm not I've had so many people. Like I remember this couple came up to me after a show and said, "Oh man, you must be so good to hang out with." And then it was just kind of awkward after that when I didn't know what else to say. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not.
You proved
I'm
them
not."
wrong in the
Yeah, I'm like
fact.
immediately. Like, so there's
I'll show
comedy does give me
you.
an outlet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'm super not fun to be around.
Let's
Like
talk
I'd much
about your
rather have a
sweater.
politics conversation than like tell you jokes.
Mm.
I like rather have a sobering philosophy conversation than like do a bunch of dick jokes.
So you think it was like a matter of time before, if this hadn't pulled you out of comedy, something would have, or just it was
It just
kind
gets
of
so
faded?
depressing. It also just
Yeah.
gets so depressing too because I think especially when you don't achieve anything, you're at the same spot and there's people who started around you aren't there anymore. And it's either because they quit or because they've achieved something where they don't have to go to open mics anymore.
Hmm.
And that is like a very dark, depressing position to be in. And it's hard. I really have to work hard not to be overcome with depression when you're in that position. When you're like,
Jealousy, guilt over the jealousy. Right. And these are your friends. These are your best friends who you
yeah,
like know and love and support their jokes. And then you have to
yeah,
feel incredibly happy for them when they move on up. But right, you can't help but the other side of that coin feel like, oh, what about me? And where's this guy? And oh wow, I'm right,
yeah.
like your whole class, as it were, your comedy class of the year. That those people can really define your comedy experience sometimes, independent of your actions. Kind of your
Yeah, totally.
peers.
Totally. And it's like all I'm ever looking for is a lot of validation through some of these things, some of these like achievements. And
What do you mean all I'm ever looking for? Like the
like when I
benchmarks
do
of comedy? Like,
yeah, if I like when I do the new faces competition, I'm not doing it for any other reason than I want to feel like I'm good at this. Like I want some sort of like measurable that I haven't got out of any other thing that like give me something
hmm.
something
I mean,
like
New
you know how
Faces
much
is a perfect example of that's like a great microcosm of just all the anxiety and all the insanity of being a comedian, all getting funneled
yeah
through this one looking glass, through this one sieve. And
yeah
I mean, comedy contests in themselves is like such an interesting offshoot of how comedy has to present itself to the greater landscape, and just one of the boxes we have to force ourselves into, which can be very good for some people and can be very bad for other comics. Oh,
gosh
how did dealing with that kind of stuff, the New Faces contest, for those who don't know, it's just the biggest comedy contest in Colorado, in Denver, every year. Comedy Works puts it on, and there's lots of comedy contests. Every state has them. Usually they're in clubs and stuff. And as much as I hate them, and have always
you hate
hated them,
clubs or
no,
comedy competitions
comedy competitions.
okay
I do recognize their value. Um, yeah.
kind of man they've been a
Yeah. How do
giant
you
make
feel?
me feel bad about myself machine
Hmm.
like because it's always been a thing where the only thing I've ever had I think I have confidence that I think I'm good at comedy and then I've never really done good in that competition so when you get out of it you have this cognitive dissonance where it's like man am I being delusional and you really have to go like and I've never been able to like figure that out it's like do I think I am better than I am I don't know and that's what always those comedy competitions send me into is like a doubt spiral where it's
Yeah.
like dude I think I'm being delusional I think
Hmm.
that time I killed I was sucking I wasn't
Right.
doing great at all like
It'll make you rethink every good or bad time ever. Right. And it's never when I bombed, did I really kill? No, it's always I did great that
yeah
night, but were they just laughing because the last person was funny and because I just had a weird vibe or a silly moment or
or you just completely misreading the world like like I always have that fear where it's like man I thought that was good but sometimes I go back and listen to really old sets where I thought I did well I'm like man that was dog shit because
hmm.
I'm like better now and I'm like okay maybe I'm
Well,
always
well, I mean,
that's a negative Nelly shit
you'll
with
that
me
the one equalizer is the laughter is what we have.
yeah
With other art, you can endlessly debate whether it's good or bad, but in that moment, if there's an audience, they will define its good or badness, and you can argue with that. But
oh you can totally argue with that
and we do oftentimes. And
yeah it's like
New
oh they're laughing at
Faces,
that
I
shit
mean, for a contest like that, you're giving it a ton of credit. Do you think you're giving it too much credit in defining whether
Oh,
you're a
for
good or
sure.
bad comedian? I mean, it's like you do 1 5 minute, not even how much. It's like 3 minutes
It might be
sometimes.
five. Might be
Yeah,
five.
I think okay. Either way, but to define your entire comedy essence, and everyone's kind of like finessing their comedy. Oh, should I do this? I got to judge it for this reason. This works good in the
Yeah.
clubs. Last week, this guy did jokes about Uber and it crushed. And this person did a thing, so I'm gonna,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I feel like the comedy greats of the past didn't. Maybe they couldn't obsess over it because there was less comedy, but they didn't waste their time worrying about all the other pathways of famous comics because people were still defining all those pathways. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Entertainment's such an amorphous thing to be in, so
Totally.
it's this a complete lack of structure in so many places that can let the mind just spiral and turn to mush.
Yeah, totally. And it impact your like growth as a performer or like creating something. Like I've had to work hard to like not be overwhelmed by jealousy and that just energy. That's just negative energy worrying about where other people are and what they're doing. Like I think even when the comedy's done, I think the skills that I've tried to get good at and still are not great at of ignoring how good other people are doing and being more obsessed with my process, like being a horse with blinders on instead of looking around.
Right.
That's going to help me a lot, even with everything in life, like when I'm like I was running at Wash Park before the fucking coronavirus thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped me had doing comedy to know that like some people were just going to fucking look like it's easy as shit and run really fast. And I'm just going to be there going as fast as I can at my own pace and to be okay with that. And I think I always thought that was a good analogy for comedy. It's like, you know what? There's some people who are just way better than me and going to get past and going to go farther than me. But you know what? Yeah, but I'm just going to keep here doing my steady jog.
Little tortoise hare action.
A little bit, but like, what if the hare never stopped in that race? The hare wins.
The hare is lapping your ass. Yes.
Yeah, you have to. The only reason why the tortoise was in competition because the hare was so grossly incompetent.
He was definitely a trust fund kid for sure.
Yeah, so it's like, and it's like that grind. I think you could like. There's some people who like get this sense of. I don't know. They feel good about themselves because they embrace the grind. They're nose to the grindstone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some parts.
I love the pain.
Yeah, and there's some parts where the grind is stupid and you're hurting yourself. Like there's athletes who train too hard and they ruin their bodies, but they're the smart ones who train just enough and don't ruin their bodies. And the grind could be the worst thing where you're just like, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about working hard. And it's like, well, you need to have the perspective to know maybe that you're not working smart or you're not
right. You've been working
in a negative
for
direction.
14 days in a row. You let your legs rest and work your freaking chest or whatever it is.
Totally. And I would love to be the guy. I think maybe my ideal situation is the guy who comes every 3 months and is happy with that. It's like, here's my new jokes. I'm just going to come to this mic and maybe they're funny, maybe they're not. And then back into the night and not have to be a part of the community or worry about anything. Just kind of get my comedy fix every once in a while.
Right. Get the personal satisfaction out of it.
But I don't think you can that way. I feel like
you don't think that's a possible dream? You're not asking for much. Every 3 months, you're gonna like shuffle together 5 to 10 minutes of jokes and then be.
It's not worth it though. It's like if you're trying to be a long distance runner and you only try it every 3 months.
Well, again, are you trying to be K-Hart? Are you trying to?
I don't know.
Because if
that's why I'm on the verge.
I mean, you're obviously not though. You decided you're not. You started and continued your entire time not trying to hustle at the K-Hart level. You were 1 foot in, as you said.
Yeah.
And yet you still somehow expect and hold yourself accountable to the success metrics of someone who's hustling at a detrimental level.
I guess so, man.
Is that fair?
No, that's certainly fair.
Why is that fair? That's not fair to hold yourself to that standard.
That's what I'm doing. I don't know.
It's reality. It hurts.
Comedy's the only thing I've ever expected anything out of myself with, because I think it is a natural skill I have. And so I do think I know I could do better. Even, if I put in the work, I know I could do better. So I know I'm leaving a lot of money on the table when it comes to dedication because I'm, because I don't want to. It's like a you know, I remember a fighter. He was a really great fighter, but he said, I just don't like fighting. And so he quit. You know, but it's like he was amazing. Like he was uniquely talented. Like there was men who could work as hard as he could for years and never get where he was, but he just didn't like it. And
you need both if you want to be top. Like
what a curse!
You need
what
to be
a curse!
naturally
Being so
talented
good at something you don't like
and work hard. Yeah. Right.
And so
to be good at something you don't like. That's interesting too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of comedians they stay in comedy because the good ones, the ones that are naturally good, because they can get such a huge reaction from such a low effort threshold, and they can get by on doing the same 5-10 minute set for years and years, decades.
Yeah, but and there's so many like traps like that in comedy that are so hard to avoid too. Like the one that I was desperately trying to avoid that I've seen other people fall into is king of the open mic. I'm like, God, I don't want to be this person. The person who rules the lowest rung of stand-up comedy.
Right.
Like, God, kill me before I'm just like bragging about how much I kill at open mics.
The Lord of the garbage pile. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. King of shit mountain. That kind of stuff.
There is a certain rugged honor in that for sure. But why is that something you wanted to avoid so much?
Because I didn't think it's not a person I wanted to be. Like at every level of comedy, I think there's people who I've seen. Because I've been around a little bit and seen a few people. I've just seen like, oh, that's where it could go bad. Like no matter what level of comedy you're at, it could go bad. You know, you could have like the D level touring comic who goes to med at like Loonies, who's like a gross person.
Yeah.
Or the person
clubs for sure.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of
who
traps.
Else you're going to name another gross person?
Do you have any gross comedian archetypes?
I'm sure they're not as gross. The one I'm obsessed with right now is the clueless comedian that puts out content and posts and jokes at such a consistent, an impressively consistent rate.
They're prolific.
While getting next to no response, while providing next to no value, and just being like using the same picture from the 80s or 90s low-res image and then putting a new text block on there and posting that same image every day for years and just not wavering. Do they ever wonder, is it working? Do they ever think they should re-strategize? I'm just amazed by their fortitude.
They're oblivious, which is pretty nice, right? Like, isn't that a nice existence to live where you just don't know, you know? Like, I feel like idiots or what is it? Being dumb is bliss. I can't remember what the saying is.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, but I don't think so. It's really situational. If you're blissfully getting, sex and grapes in your mouth every day, that's great. But if you're blissfully like trying to
putting out bad content,
be somebody who you will never, ever, ever be, and people are trying, and like you're getting no feed, you're not understanding that the no feedback you're getting is telling you that like you need to, if not stop, then change things.
Yeah. I think that's what. Yeah, like learn and grow, like, oh, this didn't work, I might adjust. Like some person who's just like, this is my one note that I'm playing. I'm just going to keep playing this note, even this note sucks.
It's a shitty note.
That's crazy.
You never learn to play the instrument.
There's so many. I think that's an interesting category of the delusional comedian. And I've always been really afraid of being that person too. Of just like I remember some guy who went up an open mic, did okay, and then came up and said to me, "Man, it feels so great. Like, just doing comedy, killing all this energy." I'm like, "You're full of shit. This is bar's half full, and you did bad. Like, are you convincing yourself that was a great energy moment? Like, it wasn't."
That's a sliding scale. The economy of laughter, right? He got one guffaw and thought he got a standing O.
And I think he was just like, he knew what people told him comedy should be, and he was just like, "That's what it is, man. I feel great every time I go up. The energy, it's like, that's not you think this is what this is not what that was. This exists, that like great energy feedback,
right?
But it doesn't exist all the time, and I don't like to pretend like it is there when it isn't.
You're at it's a great example, and it's another two-sided one, because that person is at one point innocent, sweet, and just trying to like maybe do what you do, or what you were saying, go up every 3 months, get your jollies and go. But then on the other hand, are they really just like bringing everyone down? It's shitty, and somehow they're getting some good thing out of a bad situation. Comedy is so that doesn't exist in other things. Like you can't go to the gym and then like, improperly work your muscles out and smack the thing against the wall, and then all of a sudden you're like ripped. Like it doesn't.
But people hate that guy who's using the equipment wrong at the gym. Everyone judges them, I mean, like it's.
But you know what? His heart rate is up, and that's the point.
He's doing
right?
something.
That's a good point. So who
I
are we?
Guess.
Yeah.
I am bothered by bad comedy though. Don't you see somebody who's like a really bad comedian? And like, what the fuck do you think this is? Like,
more
you're
overrated.
trying to be Dane Cook.
Right.
You hate overrated. You don't like overrated.
Bad comedians. I'll only. Because, I mean, you have to be bad at some point. And if you're trying to not be bad, that's one thing. But if you're just like embracing the kind of bad you are, and you think like, oh, I'm an edgelord or something, all the shocks and all the gasps in the audience, that's a reaction. It's not laughter. You're getting, just people who are digging into their wrongness. I don't blame you for being ignorant of good comedy technique if you're open to learning it.
Yeah.
But if you turned your back on it and you think you're the shit.
Edgy for the sake of edgy is my least favorite form of comedy.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It's a big one these days.
Just be honest. And if you're edgy, if you just happen to be edgy, then be edgy. But like, don't like go. I also hated Carson Mencia would do that. It's like, I'm going to say something offensive. I'm like,
get ready.
Up. Right. Yeah, shut up. That's not what people say when they're being rebels.
Good Lord.
Punk rock people don't go like, hey, I'm about to be punk rock. Right. They just are fucking punk rock.
Right. Lenny Bruce is just dragged off stage after he says it. He doesn't give a preface and everything.
And he's doing it because it's honest to him. I think honesty is like the biggest thing when you're a performer that's like easily, you could see if it's not there. And I think it's the most important thing is just being honest. And it's like, if you're being an edgy guy, but it's not you, you're just saying like, oh man, I love Stanhope or I love this, I got to be edgy. I've never seen it work. It's just not a good way to go.
Yeah.
You got to be yourself.
I mean, there's something about watching someone bomb with that will make you not like them as a person. Whereas if you watch a new comedian bomb with just like honest jokes about life and observations, you kind of feel bad for them and you want to help them and you want to get, but there's this like, what's up fuckers? I don't want to help that guy. That's the first thing you say to me on stage. Yeah.
Unless that's him. Unless he's a what's up fuckers guy.
But I'm not looking good.
Yeah, I love seeing new people that are like, you're like, oh man, they got the raw parts to be a really good comedian. Like they've come up with, the jokes might not be there, but they came up with like premises that are unique and I haven't heard before. I'm like, that's all you need. Like that's the good. I love seeing that. I've like when you're like, oh, this person has good premises. Like that's a big thing for me. It's just thinking of something in a different way than someone else has thought about it before. And that's what if I see somebody do that, that's my favorite type of comedy. It's just like, haven't thought of it that way. That's an interesting perspective.
Yes.
I love that.
It doesn't make you think of your own stuff and I should write. It's like, oh, how does that measure up to mine? It's like, no, that's just great and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I might get back to liking comedy too when I quit.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes I have trouble watching.
Do you watch anymore? What's it like?
I still watch a lot, but I'll turn off a lot of, like, I won't give stuff a lot of time. Like I'll watch the first 15 minutes. If it grabs me, I'll stick with it. But if it doesn't, I'll turn it off. But I've heard that I've heard comics now, instead of leaving their best joke for the end of the special, now they start with it because people, I guess, like you don't want to finish the specials. Yeah, I think you could tell that with like Jim Jeffries is one of my favorite specials. Though. Yeah. You literally start with a sentence that is provocative, and that's, I think Bill Burr started his last special like that. You just start boom with a fucking provocative statement. I mean, and that's good when it's done well, but when it's not, then you're talking about those edgelord assholes we were just mentioning at the open mics. Yeah, it wouldn't be good. But like it has to be. And I've stolen that fucking joke format for so many of my jokes that I've realized it's like, oh, my joke is start with a provocative statement and then go to the meat of the joke. I've stolen that joke format. Something to steal. It's like more of a technique than a rubric, but I get what you're saying. I mean, but it's like when I look at my jokes, I'm like, yeah, it's like this has the same structure as this joke, I've been lazy sometimes with that, where it's like, oh, I'll use the same exact trick here. You start with that statement like, I like getting my wiener wrapped in toilet paper. Let me explain. No, whatever. Something. Totally. I mean, that's about the level my bits are at. Yeah. My wiener left. That's another thing too. Just like hating. It's a fun, yeah. It's a good bit. It's the other thing too about quitting is I just hate my material too. Like I'm like, this is some lowbrow shit. Like I've got some lowbrow shit, and I would have to work hard to like bring it up to the standards where I would want it. So I'm like, I don't know if I have the energy for that. I'm like, I might just stick with this lowbrow bullshit. But, you know, like, I don't know. I
You
just
just want to
really
get
hate
that low hanging fruit.
I don't know.
You
Or it's
sounded
just
more
my,
like
it's
that
like,
3-month hobbyist. Just
I
come
don't
in and
know.
do all the jokes, all the Kardashian and Bill Clinton blowjob jokes you want, and then you know.
Yeah. So we'll
All right,
see.
outgrowing
That's another thing
your
too.
material, yes, and the way that having your
Hating it.
material can hold you back because it gets
Yeah.
laughter, and even though you
Yeah.
want to move on. Do you ever flirt with the idea of burning it all? And like I'm trying to see whatever I'm going through as part of comedy. Quitting comedy is part of comedy, in a way, because it's going
Death's a part of life.
it's going to let me cool off. It's going to let me get new perspective. It's going to give me the freedom to analyze those old jokes and decide which of them I truly am not attached to anymore and don't define me and are holding me back. That, whatever. If I decide to go back, but it's letting me like redefine things.
What do you think you'll do? Do you think you'll just continue kind of like coming in and out every once in a while, or do you think you'll
I've been out for
completely quit?
No, I mean, I still love stand-up, man. I do.
Do you?
But almost in theory more than in practice. Yeah, I wonder.
It's like when you're out, you're like,
I still do public speaking, and I still like. Yeah, I have a thing with my friend where we teach people how to be better public speakers using like ideas from the comedy world and stuff like that. And it's great.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding, and it's like small rooms. I don't know, stuff like it, but I also am not feeling like I need to get my ass out to the mic unless I wanted to, for some reason, like to work on a stand-up themed project or if I wanted to work on jokes, because I'm still hopelessly creative. I'm still like trying to make videos and content and explore things.
And that's what I'm getting a sense from you right now is that stand-up's too narrow for you. Like you really need a more I don't know, more
like
full featured way of expressing yourself. Because that's the other thing too about stand-up is it's an old art form. Like even the people who are selling out comedy clubs are like sometimes Instagrammers and YouTubers and not people who went through like an open mic leveling up system. So it's like maybe you would be better, get more progress in a stand-up career if you just went and did really funny YouTube stuff.
That's what I'm hoping. Everyone subscribe. Daniel Reskin. I don't have enough subscribers to have a unique URL yet, but
oh really?
Once I get to 100, we'll see.
Okay. What about TikTok?
Would
you kill it? Would you be a TikTok star?
I might just like, I think I'm half joking, but there's a certain physicality that I always appreciated in comedy of like the Jim Carrey school.
Yeah.
That I denied to a big part doing stand-up, because when I became the stand-up comic, I was all like, let me use my intellectual thoughts to stimulate me. And, eventually, of course, act outs and stuff got a little more character and I learned to act, but I think it was something that I stifled, and like I always loved that just insane, like physical, ridiculous humor, that kind of stuff. And TikTok and little Vine, all that kind of stuff is great for short little stupids, and you can resent all those people for like getting popular. A lot of stand-up people do resent the YouTube and the social media people that fill comedy clubs, not from doing stand-up. But at the end of the day, stand-up's about comedy's about making people laugh. If you want to be a purist, that's wonderful. But I think being a purist is like increasingly closed-minded, especially when so many people doing stand-up can innovate the whole thing and turn it on its head and get all these people, Yeah, have
you ever seen a Bo Burnham special?
Right.
It's like, I wouldn't call that guy a comedian. He's 10 times better than a comedian. He's a fucking entertainer. Like there's so much, if you're just trying to be a stand-up, I get it. It's like being a boxer. It's like, I'm really good at this one way of fighting, but like Bo Burnham's like mixed martial arts, where it's like, I'm good at all this shit.
Interesting.
And I do think stand-up might just be old, like there's something, and that's good and bad. It's like this old art form where it's just a person with a microphone.
In a way. Right.
Yeah.
But can also be stale if you do the same thing forever.
Totally. And like, there is like people thinking too much about comedy, like sometimes there's too many, like as we're on a podcast talking about comedy, there's too many people out there thinking too much about it. And there's not enough people going like, that guy's got a funny looking face. And he's moving around silly.
Him fart. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like farts and falling down the stairs might be the most like fucking edgy shit you could do right now. Where it's just, it's
Literal
not,
edges that you're falling off.
yeah, it's not politically minded. It's just the perfect mix where everyone can enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I might open myself up to more of that. It's like, okay, this is the old way of doing it. Where's something where I could get this energy out, but in a smarter, newer way? And who knows what that could be, you know?
Right.
So it's kind of exciting in that
limiting
way.
yourself. Yeah. Taking off the stand-up hat is scary as hell, but can be extremely liberating.
Yeah, dude. Like totally. If this just turned into me making silly comics with like one-liners at the bottom, and me putting that online, maybe that's a cool thing where this could transform into.
Right.
I would love it. I mean, who knows, man? But I just can't. I don't know if I'll ever. I've fallen in love with the stupid thoughts that I have, like the bits that I think of.
Mm-hmm.
I got to give them a home somehow. Like maybe get a tattoo every dumb idea I get. Here's this like you're like, look at it, isn't it weird? You know,
you're like, I stopped doing the horrible idea of stand-up comedy, but I have the great idea of getting physical tattoos every time I come up with a whim. That's great.
Would that be great to share all your bits? That'd be interesting. Like a sleeve of all your favorite bits. Like mine would be a lot of dick jokes. A lot of lowbrow dick shit.
I know there's some unsuccessful comedians out there who probably have set list tattoos that they can draw in and things like that. I don't know. I say unsuccessful. I'm like, you're worried about the wrong thing. No, that's kind of more of that diehard commitment that I appreciate but don't understand. That's like, I'm gonna get a tattoo of a microphone.
But also some of it's phony though, you know? Some of it's like, this is what a comedian does, and I'm gonna be a comedian. I'll get a tattoo of a microphone, but some of it's like, you're playing a role. You're not being real a little bit, you know?
Right.
I get that sense.
You're playing this game, a character.
I desperately try never to be a character or like, and so I've never pandered that much to
well, here's a messed up thing is that I hear that to be successful as a comedian, you have to be a character and you kind of have to define your personality in such a way that people can put their finger on it and repeat to it and be like, oh, that comic, they're kind of scared, they're kind of funny, they're kind of greedy, they're kind of sexual. You know, there's a certain kind of characterization that you almost have to do where you blunt yourself to get it, especially for that mass market appeal, to really trying to kind of make it, quote unquote. I feel like people are doing niche stuff more than ever, but it's the idea of like, I don't know, molding yourself into a product where that might not necessarily reflect who you are or what's best for you as a human or for a productive life, but is good to be a funny thing. And that's what we're essentially trying to do, is make people laugh. At what cost? That's the question. Are we trying to make people laugh at all costs? No, we're not. Like, you know, you had some
maybe
we have reservations.
Why not? Why not at all costs?
Because we have jobs and we have personal
I guess so.
needs and wants, and we want to be in productive lives and healthy relationships and have hobbies.
Yeah, but you know, what do you think about Larry the Cable Guy? Do you think that guy's an ass or like is bad because he's doing a character that he may or may not agree with and just kind of pandering to the lowest common denominator?
Yeah, I've come like full circle and a half on Larry the Cable Guy, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
you have deep thoughts about Larry the Cable Guy? Me too.
Not so much deep, but just nuanced, because I try to, it's so easy to just say, oh, he's pandering, he's, you know, there's a brilliant David Cross article from years ago where he goes into like the psychological nuances of how he's like patronizing the very people who support him and how it's this kind of weird like country blackface thing, you know. Because he's very much Dan Whitney, a non-hillbilly fella. But at the same time, I've seen him be so nice and so respectful to so many people, talking shit at him and kind of trying to like. I'm interested in his fight for legitimacy in the greater comedy world. It's very interesting. That being said, I'm not trying to watch him. It ain't for me. You know?
I've enjoyed a Larry the Cable Guy special. I think he buys good jokes.
Right.
Like he has good joke writers that he buys jokes from.
I listened to him in Tampa in college when people would like put it on and I was there and I'm like, it's, you know, it's funny, whatever. But
And I might come down on Larry the Cable Guy side over David Cross.
Yeah, what are your feelings?
Oh man, I don't like David Cross at all. Just because there is like a pompousness to his perspective and like a smugness that I don't like. And I think there is a sense of Larry the Cable Guy. It's like, hey, we're just having fun here. You know, we're just here having a good time, and He's
think
just
too
trying to
hard.
rain on our parade.
It's the last thing we were talking about essentially was head funny versus gut funny.
Gut funny's so much better.
Like we're talking about that and well, it's different pleasures, it's like the process is so important in head funny. It's like eating food.
Yeah.
Like gut funny is fast food. Gut funny is a big greasy burger in your face, and it doesn't matter where it came from or what it's going to do to you.
Yeah.
The brain humor is a farm-to-table curated experience from a farmer's market garden, and you need to know everything about the ingredients and what goes into the pot before you eat it. And when you eat it, how is it going to affect you? Am I going to listen to the kind of comedy that makes me this type of person?
But on your deathbed or like on death row, are you going to want the greasy burger? Probably. The greasy burger's better.
Well, now I'm not thinking about my future.
No.
But if you're asking me as a 20-year-old, do I want to eat a greasy burger every day? And is that going to lead to a healthy sustainability? Maybe not.
Well, so like one of my favorite comedians is Mark Norman. I like the way he writes jokes. He writes really good jokes. But I will laugh. I enjoy the laughs I get from Tracy Morgan way more. Of his just like
the Norman versus Morgan defense.
Yeah, it's like
I read that thesis. That was a very.
I love Tracy Morgan, and he'll just say non sequiturs. That are so fucking funny. That are just you couldn't write it. Like he's just himself, and
Tina Fey wrote
love
that.
Yeah. How weird to write Tracy Morgan dialogue. That's such a fun job.
Yeah,
it's like we got to put silly.
You have to have
shit
night terrors and write the first thing you scream out in the middle of the waking up.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and pregnancy, but he's great, and it's like you can choose your favorites, but why choose? Of course, everyone's gonna lean on one more than the other. But you got your Three Stooges versus your Abbott and Costello. One was.
Are you too positive to say who's your? So I have a famous comedian who everyone else likes that I hate. Do you have one of those, or are you too nice?
I don't know if I'm too nice. I don't know if I can think of anyone right now. I mean, I definitely hate a lot of the people that everyone hates. Like, your Jeff Dunhams and stuff like that.
Oh.
Like I don't like what he does, but he's great at it. That's the nicest thing.
Bill Engvall's my biggest. Like, this guy sucks. I fucking hate Bill Engvall just because he sucks.
Just like I can tell, just like the watered down, like bare bones effort. Right?
It is watered down high C.
It's like rejected sitcom family jokes.
It's the shape of comedy. It's not comedy. It's like, this has the rhythm and pacing of comedy.
I can't believe it's not comedy.
Yeah, this is margarine. I'm looking for butter. It's weird. And Chris D'Elia is the other one. I just don't understand. It's weird when the people love a comedian.
He's Justin Bieber's favorite comedian, so I get it.
Do you think that's why? But people love him, man. No. Like I have fights with JD, like almost fist fights.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I don't like him at all, and he's just in love with him, and I don't understand that at all.
I'm all right.
Isn't that weird?
I have no strong feelings on.
Oh yeah.
Chris D'Elia.
You're too nice.
I'm afraid. I don't know if I'm too nice. He doesn't bother me too bad, but he also hasn't swept me off my feet. I think I've seen him do a couple things.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many comedians too, and so many to keep track of. You get to that point where you don't want to see anyone else to see what you're doing, but you also have to keep your finger on the pulse of comedy, whatever that is.
A little bit.
Or just to find the pulse of comedy.
Have you had this experience where it's like, I need to quit because my references are stuck in 2001? It's like I'm not going to pull out Billie Eilish out of the back of my head. I'm going to pull out Christina Aguilera. It's going to make me sound 80 years old. Yeah. Like my references have aged terribly. Do you have that at all?
That's part of maintaining the wooden ship of comedy. You take it out for a sail, and then all of a sudden the Jeffersons reference doesn't work, and you need to update the third rock from the sun. That's just that's how things are. That's the kind of stuff that I do miss about being a comedian, is just being so warm and loose from having performed regularly that like you could literally be in any moment and someone could be like, hey, can you do 5 right now? And I could. And even though I'm the type of person that would send me into a panic spiral and be like, oh God, do you want me to do that? Da, da, da. Like there was an employee Christmas party, holiday party back in Miami, and I was only like 2 or 3 years into comedy, and one guy's a DJ and one guy's a rapper, and people are like doing stuff, and they're like, oh, do some comedy, Dan, do some comedy. And I was just completely I couldn't, like, I was like, no, it's not. Like, I just got this thing in my head that said that I'm not going to do it tonight. And I was like, that's different. You got it. And like, just trying to make up excuses of people. And people just wanted me to go up there and say, hey, how's it going? Just goof off for a second and get down. And didn't even have to do my act or whatever, but holding myself to this standard. I got to prepare. I got to have a good thing. And just, you know, I'm the kind of person that'll overthink things, wanting them to be perfect and then do nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that happened in comedy a lot, where I'd be like, oh, I got to go try these new jokes tonight, but oh man, I spent some time, I'm 5 minutes late. I don't want to get there late to the mic. So I guess I just won't go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a paralysis because you're overanalyzing things. And I you know, so much of that has been anti-productive for me with trying to do creative things. It's just like, just do it. Just make something. And if it sucks, it sucks. But the getting to the end point is the most important part.
And you get better at the end.
It's hard to do though, because I'm so afraid like of failure, or just like I'll be at the starting point of a project or something. And I'm just like desperately procrastinating because I'm so afraid of just the undertaking that is.
Once you do it, it can suck. Once you actually bring it into real life, it can be not as good as you think, and you could feel bad about yourself, and everyone can hate it. But that's the thing. It's like no one cares. No one, they'll look at it for a second. If it sucks, they move on, and then next time maybe it's a little better. It's so hard.
That's a big thing. Nobody cares about you as much as you do. Like literally, that's almost on all accounts that is always the case. It's like no one's thinking about you as much as you are. And that's another thing I've been trying to push into my head more. Is like nobody cares about me. You know, like none of this shit matters. Like no one's going like, ooh, Patrick didn't go to Mike's, or like Patrick has bad jokes now. Patrick sucks, you know, like nobody gives a shit about me. Like I don't need to be worrying about that, but that doesn't match up with how I feel, you know, like that's how I feel. That's how I logically feel, but not how I emotionally feel. That's
the brain versus gut almost. It's like you bomb at that 5-minute open mic, and for the rest of the night, you're thinking everyone knows I'm a hack. But in reality, the moment you're off stage, you have left everybody's mind. They're looking and evaluating the next comedian and thinking that they're a hack. So it's like,
especially if you've been doing it for a long time, you're like, what the fuck, man? Everyone I started with is either doing bigger shit or quit, and I'm here not being mediocre at an open mic. Like, what the fuck? Like, how could you not want to quit after that? How could, I mean, I'd question the way your brain works if you were doing open mics for an extended period of time and then then it went through a period of bombing at open mics and didn't go like, man, maybe this is just not worth my time. Like, it just seems like a logical reaction to
it's weird, because if you painted the end of that story with success, then it would become an amazing success story that you'd hear on a normal comedy podcast. Right. It's like
the outcome's important.
I struggled and I banged and I kept going. I put my head down and I worked harder and I kept at it and I kept, you know, and we apparently reward that. But what we don't reward are the people that work hard and keep at it when they just shouldn't be, and they can't pick their head up long enough to be like, I'm running towards the edge of a cliff, not a highway.
Quitting is a good thing to do sometimes. Like that's a thing that I've learned in life, is like sometimes the best thing you could do is quit and like not, you know, cut the losses, stop the bleeding. Sometimes knowing when to stop is the most important thing in life, is knowing when to quit, and like who knows what that is. But you know, I'm just learning that. That's my wife.
Yeah. Hi, wife.
Say hi.
I had a cat earlier. You want to see my cat, wife? Look, she's on the floor. What a silly cat.
Oh, we could show. Now she's out.
All right, she's out.
Nothing. But yeah. Yeah. So, that's a big thing.
It's just a lot of dualities. There's a lot of like issues in comedy that it really kind of depends on how you look at them, where you are, and who you are, as to whether they're positives or negatives.
Yeah, totally. And I guess that you could say that with anything in life, is like, it's the perspective. But I think it's a negative at this point for me, and that's why I want to stop.
So you're pretty decided.
I talk a big game. Like, this is like when you say like, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm like when you're really gung ho about a diet right now, and then 2 weeks later you're eating cake. But I know it would. But with the quarantine, I do see the benefit of having. I have a forced comedy quitting scenario and I'm seeing a bunch of benefits. It's like how you can see the sky, the mountains from my house now. It's like, oh man, there's not pollution, and I'm not having to worry about comedy anymore, and I'm not worrying about these shows, and I don't have to drive all these ways to maybe go to a half decent show. It's like I am seeing the benefit of not spending that time, and it is because of the pandemic giving me a forced break, and you see the benefits.
Right. With your diet analogy, it's kind of like if the whole world just stopped selling bacon and ice cream and and like fatty foods, and everyone was just forced to deal with it. It's like,
yeah, all we got is vegetables now, man. We had a weird winter, and all we got is Brussels sprouts. So you're gonna have some people lose weight.
How do you think that? I mean, it's just so weird to not talk about it for a second, but coronavirus affecting stand-up. There's definitely a lot of people who are bouncing off the walls right now, but with just statistics of things, there's a lot of people who should quit comedy that are going to get out of it sooner, and there's people who are just falling in love with comedy who are sadly gonna, miss the train.
A little bit. And I think too, like, I might not go back because I don't want to, because it doesn't go away, like it's something we're gonna have to live with until a vaccine is created. And so it's like, I have family members who are older and have asthma and have a lot of the things you worry about with this disease. So I'm like, do I just not go out anymore? Because like, if I go to Comedy Works, is it reckless because I could bring something back to my mom who I don't think would do well with this disease? So it's like, even after the restrictions lifted, where does my own personal responsibility to people around me continue? Because I could carry the disease after the restrictions drop just as easily as I could before it. And, so I think that could be a deciding factor in me doing weird comedy.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't want to spread disease. Like literally.
Usually people would say that they're talking about their material, but you very literally are disease.
And it could be, spread. And right before they had all the restrictions, I was telling my wife, it's like, okay, I'm not going to go to Mike's for 2 weeks. I'm going to see what happens. And that was like the Thursday before, like the Monday is when everything got closed down basically. And the Thursday before, I told my wife that I wasn't going to go out for 2 weeks to see what happens. And that Thursday I went out because I was just like, I need to go out. Like I still went out even after I had make my plaque after I said I wasn't going to go out. So it's like the drug pulled me back into the real world before the government pushed me back into the rules pushed me back in. So who knows what happens when the restrictions get lifted? But there is a, I'm trying to extrapolate and going like, I mean, it's still not safe.
Do you think that's an easy crutch to lean on because it just simplifies all the other reasons that
say coronavirus? Like I quit because of that.
Oh yeah,
it'd help. If it's the fucking thing that helps me do that, then that makes sense.
Thank you, coronavirus.
For giving me an excuse. Because some of it is just like, what are you going to tell people when they ask you why they quit? And that might never happen. But it's like, oh, I quit because of the coronavirus, and I didn't want to infect my family. And it's like a good answer to it when I was like, I started hating it a little bit. And
Yeah. So, that's a huge part, is talking your identity with your family, with your friends, the whole thing you built. Patrick's a comedian. Hey, does everyone know Patrick? He's a comedian. Like, that's almost harder than quitting with yourself, is alerting all the people in your life that you've given up on your so-called dream.
I feel that a little bit less. I don't, because I would actually enjoy telling my uncle that I'm not a comic anymore, so he could stop telling me jokes all the time.
You can use that in your skit.
Yeah, it's very sweet. He's a very nice man, but it also goes like, okay, can we get this over with so we could have a normal conversation? But so I'd actually enjoy that part of my, where I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. Because they always ask me, still doing comedy? I say yes, and then it always kind of never evolves into anything because they really don't have any questions.
No substantial conversation about the art form whatsoever. Just like,
well,
a funny thing I heard.
Yeah, and I want to have that conversation. I'm like, go into my, have some material that I like. Like I want to actually have like an in-depth comedy conversation with them, but they don't want that, and so it just never goes anywhere. So it'd actually be nice just to go like, no,
you can't expect that except from a comedian, sadly, or just the comedy nerds that are out there. Those are always the best people. And in that same vein, what thought experiment? You're still in comedy. someone new is introduced to you and they go, "Oh, Patrick, oh, you're a comedian? Tell me a joke."
Yeah.
What do you do?
I go, no. Nah, don't, no.
Oh, come on, man. It's just one joke. You don't got to do your whole act.
No. I have no problem with being a stick in the mud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It really, really ruins interactions sometimes.
Right. I thought you were a funny comedian guy.
or sometimes I'll do just my joke with the newest one that I think is really great. I'm like, okay, let's just do this. I'm like, here's
You
the
tried
joke
it
that I'm
before,
interested.
right? Then you get to that moment where you're like, let me actually give him a fucking joke.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. And
Never goes well.
it's like, okay. No, but it's not bad either.
Okay.
Because sometimes I have some nice quick jokes that might just be, okay, here's a joke. There it is. Okay,
Little
cool.
one-liner.
Yeah, that's helped too. Just having I think every comic just for that situation should have a joke holstered, just like a quick joke.
Hey, it's a public service, but you're right. You probably should. It's so easy to just be like, "Fuck you! Oh, what are you? If you're a doctor, can you look at this mole on my ass?
Yeah.
You're not at your job." And there's so much nuance to creating comedy. There has to be a stage, there's a thing. That's like, it's just feeling that pressure and feeling, I don't know, getting too serious about it.
It does annoy me, but I've been doing it long enough that the people who I talk to, my family, we have the back and forth standard thing, and then it goes. Then we could go beyond that. It's just like a de facto conversation starter.
Right. And so you think it'll just be generally easy with your family? They're not going to be like, "Oh gosh, what do you?" They're just going to be like, "Okay, well, you stop doing comedy. What else is? I'll just stop telling you shitty jokes, and I'll figure out some new intro to our conversations."
They might still tell me shitty jokes. In fact, my uncle, I know
that'll probably never stop. Yeah.
Yeah, he might just do that all the time, but I don't think it'll affect them that much because they were never that interested anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And it was always nice to not
casual
be that
interest.
person. I always hated getting the identity of a comedian because then it comes with, I don't know, expectations that I'll never live up to because I'm just low energy, kind of a judgmental person who's just always judging people in his head as he walks around the world. And is pretty quiet. So I can't live up to your idea of what a comedian is, ever.
Listen, well, what that idea is what your idea you're putting in their heads, and what is the idea of that archetypal comedian that you're expecting these people to expect you to be?
Fun, and wants to be around them.
Just on,
and I don't.
On even when you're off stage.
Is enjoying their company, and I don't. I generally I'm kind of like a loner, and so in those situations when that's happened, I'm like, man, I wish I could get out of this. And so, and I don't think that's what they think of a comedian is. I don't think they think that a comedian is hungry for their approval with laughter, and I've never been that way inside of conversations. I'm just like, okay, well, let's have a conversation, and if you're interesting, it might be fun. If you're not, then we could go through like the de facto conversation milestones and get through this.
Right.
But I'm not on ever.
Yeah, we can tell. Is there? Heyo. Is there? Damn, insulting you made me forget that question.
Good insult though.
Yeah, it was easy. Lying fruit.
So you can see my cat.
Yeah, she seems like she wants to get on out of there, but I just like having her in the frame.
Tiger.
It's a baby cat. I got a cat. You got cats. Cat life.
Wow, damn, dude.
Lady.
Comfy cat.
Yeah, they like to get out of belly.
Maybe I'll let the cat out. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get it.
Yeah, let the cat out. This cat. Oh, she makes the noises. She said meow meow. She said meow meow meow. There's a cat in the box that this is on. Let's see.
This has helped me a lot.
Yeah, well,
I was just looking for a therapy session.
Yeah, you reached
it's been really helpful.
You reached out, right? Somewhere to like vent these frustrations for a comedian that's going through it now. Yeah. So a lot of the viewers who are interested in this show are people in your shoes, in my shoes, in various offshoots of outside of comedy. What would you say to other people who are questioning quitting and their resolve in comedy, and like, what should they think about or look at or do?
I think they should quit. think if you're thinking about it, you should do it.
Hmm.
I think that's a good advice. Just do it, because I think you're probably going to end up quitting anyway, and I don't think I'm worried about like telling the next Louis C.K. to quit.
Well, you might. That's debatable these days.
Or okay, the next de facto. I'm not. If it's like okay, this is another fighting analogy. If a boxer is talking about retirement, they should retire because their heart's not in it anymore.
Because they're
And I
starting
think
to question the
yeah.
power.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about quitting, you might just quit, and then you could come back anytime. Like there's no in and out. Like you could start and stop comedy anytime.
It's going to be there.
And don't worry about what other people think. Just do what you need to do, and that includes relapsing on comedy.
Right. Do you expect you'll relapse?
We'll see. God, if I'm just become like this really happy yogi, like I just dedicate my comedy time into yoga, and I just fucking get really svelte and really happy, I could see that world happening and not coming back. Because I think once you break it, it's like any addiction. Or well, maybe not. I think once I get far enough away from it, it'll be easier. But the closer I am to it, the harder it is to get away from it. Once I got like a year and a half out, I think and I'm not on social media because I think I need to not see people doing stand-up because I think that'll make me jealous,
right?
Like crazy jealous. So quit comedy, get off social media, and be happy. And and maybe see if I could channel this into a better, more productive thing. Like literally, like I've been doing yoga every night.
Oh yeah.
During this quarantine, and I fucking love it.
Good for you. That's awesome.
It's been fun.
Yoga's awesome.
And you could still get that same kind of challenge, and growth in something else that I got out of comedy. It's like, okay, this has been really helpful. So I just need to find a new hobby.
Dude, what do you so you're finding things in yoga that you are excited about in the way that you used to be with comedy?
Yeah, like the growth is just the progress is just a thing that I like. Oh man, I could touch my toes now, or I could
Right.
This doesn't hurt as much. And there is something that's great about a physical accomplishment. Like any comedy goal is so intangible and like ethereal and like hard to like put on a shelf or do something with or show somebody.
Right.
But like physical gifts, you're like, or achievements, you're like, look at me, I could fucking plank now, or I could do this, and it's going to make me live longer or make me happier. And it's like, there's just so many places where if you're just being logical, you're like, man, if I put my time into this, I could be a happier, more productive person. And it's hard. And then quitting comedy is just me going like, it's harder and harder for me to ignore that fact, is that maybe there's more productive things I could do with my time and be happier, healthier, live longer, have a better family life. And
wow.
And that's just the truth.
Realizing that comedy is bad for you.
Yeah.
In a way that
or at least
wasn't, or just is now. It's
or the level of comedy or whatever comedy is for me, like the time commitment of driving and sitting and that kind of stuff. It's just not. It's not worth it.
You could be downward dogging, baby.
I could be downward dogging and really enjoying it, and like I do enjoy that. It's just like that meditative state of the yoga where you're just kind of like in a pose that kind of sucks, and you're just kind of like trying to zone out, and so
find
that could be the thing that I'm into.
Yeah.
Well, just better for me.
I'm pumped for you in that, but also I'm kind of worried that like as someone who's done yoga, I feel like I hit a plateau. I used to be extremely excited about it when I got started in it and was doing it twice a day, and now many years later I love it, but now I'm like, oh crap, I haven't done it this week. I need to do maybe I wonder if the plateau effect has something to do with it, and there's a certain type of personality that you're just going to want to do different activities going from the beginner to the intermediate phase. And once you get there, as an intermediate, you understand what it would take to be a master in a way that an amateur does not.
Yeah.
And you can make the decision, do I want that? Because there's a huge gap from intermediate to master to advanced. And that's the difference between like being getting made or whatever it is.
No, I think that summed up a lot of this conversation right there. It's just like, I've gone farther enough to see what it would take to go farther, and I'm not up for the journey. when it comes to comedy.
Right, you can see over the valley, and you're like, oh, there's a snake pit, there's quicksand, there's a monster pit. Maybe I'm just gonna go back to camp, and I'll
Yeah.
just like make cool stuff and hang out with my people.
And you've met enough people who got trapped in the sand trap or got bit by the snake, and you're like, okay, it's a hazardous path that gets a lot of people. And I hope that doesn't happen with yoga. I'm like, in 5 years, I'm just on some yoga podcast going like, man, I just fucking disillusioned by yoga.
You were a prominent yogi, Patrick, and you threw it all away.
I was a respected yogi.
You didn't commit to it. You had one leg in and one leg in the air, and
yeah. But the quarantine has been very revealing and helpful in what a world without comedy is.
Say your son starts flirting with the idea of getting into comedy. What would you tell him?
Definitely do it. It's fun. Depending on how old he is too.
Even though he's a baby and he wouldn't understand what you're saying to him right now?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Why is he telling me this?
I mean, he wants right now to do it. Right.
Then do it, man.
There's COVID, baby.
If you could be a 9-month-old with a killer bit and go on America's Got Talent, I think you could do something. Like if we could get him to have a good 5 minutes, yeah, we could definitely make.
There are a lot of those videos of like way too young children killing on stage. Do you ever see those?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we know your parents wrote it for you, so this is your dad's bit, so it is kind of weird.
Yeah, you're a good actor, right?
Yeah. Unless they wrote that, man, I would love to see like an actual funny kid's written. The kid wrote the stand-up.
I mean,
comedy.
there's some. I've tutored a middle schooler to write a stand-up bit or something one time. I actually never got to follow up. I imagine it went terribly now because I sat with the kid and his mom and talked about all kinds of stuff for a few hours, and I didn't hear anything back. So I should follow up and see if the kid bombed or crushed in his.
He was like that guy
report.
from Seinfeld. Just started yelling obscenities at the crowd. Like, oh, this went terrible.
Yeah.
Comedy's not for everybody.
I did teach him the Kramer School comedy, so it's just like if things get crazy, just yell something naughty.
Terrible. Yeah. Worst thing you could think of, like just really, the worst thing. Just yell it over and over again. That's
one of the possible outcomes of comedy. It's one of the crazy rides the old comedy beast can buck and buck.
Yeah, I do relate to that a little bit, where the guy was just like had nothing else to do or was angry, and then he just did the worst thing in the world. And like I could kind of relate to that.
Can you?
Like being in that situation? Yeah, totally.
Just in a general sense, not necessarily saying what he did, but just being so insane, like trying to throw a Hail Mary pass that like
doesn't work out.
Is way in the wrong direction.
Takes a big swing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy took a big swing.
Yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of, I mean, we're almost bordering into like regular comedy podcast territory by like Louis C.K. and all these people. But that's part of getting out of comedy too. Is I haven't necessarily interviewed anyone yet. I hopefully one day will like interview someone who's like bombed their way out of comedy, or I don't know. Everyone I know is cool and insightful and funny. So actually, I don't think I'm going to interview a lot of those people.
Well, there was one guy I remember when I was at the Lion's Lair. He went up for his first time. Nobody laughed. It went really terrible, and he went from the stage to the door and left. And I was like, that'd be an interesting guy to talk to. He's like, man, I was scared to shitless.
One time, one and done.
Left the bar immediately. Was like shell shocked from the amount of bombing he just did. Like it was. I didn't remember that guy. That was probably 7 years ago. That's probably when I started.
Wow.
I saw that guy, and I'm like, I still remember him. And that could have been me.
Right, and who knows? Like it's like I almost wish it was.
Could have been. I mean, could have been a big yogi by now.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know how to talk to your classes, so.
No, I'd be shitty.
You'd be like, I'm just gonna adjust your. Okay, I'm not gonna adjust you, but like your elbow looks kind of weird. I don't know. Now you'd be like,
I'd still be bad at that.
Open
I would never
your third chakra from the rectum forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mind crazy. Well, I don't know who should I send you the bill for the therapy session? Because comedy therapy.
I'll Venmo you.
Several drink tickets, okay, is what this is gonna cost. I'm still in the comedy economy.
What's funny, I just have people Venmo me comedy money and it just sticks in my Venmo, and I've never used it. And so many people have been having like GoFundMe's or like stuff, and I've just been throwing that comedy money out as like charity stuff. So it's like it's just there sitting. It's not real money to me. So it's like being generous, but that doesn't even affect me at all. It's kind of awesome.
That's a great kind of poetic way to tie it up.
Yeah.
It's like all the monetary benefit you gained. You are a kind of a, not even hobbyist, because hobbyist has so many negative connotations to it, but just someone who is into comedy to do comedy and like not thinking about how they're going to climb the ladder to success and fame, and not worrying about being one of the goats or something, but just like trying to make people laugh, trying to be funny, trying to figure this thing out, do it. And at the same point, what you didn't get was the expectations of that mindset. You still had the expectations of a comedy hustle mindset.
Yeah, I think it's helped me too, because I think you could like get weighed down by that.
See, it sounds like you've released it. You're releasing it. You're letting go of the beating yourself up for not turning stone into gold when like you weren't trying to do that in the first place.
I guess so. I mean, now that I think of it that way, that does make me feel better about it.
Good.
Yeah, because I was putting weird expectations on myself, I think. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, damn, Patrick. Yeah. Go on.
I don't know.
What were you gonna say?
I don't know. That's where I'm at. It's like that's how I described to you in that message, like on the verge. Like I'm very much still trying to figure all this stuff out, and how much I'm dedicated to quitting and how much I'm dedicated to not quitting.
I think you need to start thinking about redefining more than quitting or not quitting.
Redefining? Was that like how so?
Redefining your relationship with comedy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not necessarily expecting to either be on or off with like, am I a stand-up or am I not a stand-up? Am I doing the grind or am I nothing? It's like, no, I'm going to do Patrick Scott style comedy, which entails me writing on these days. It entails me going out to an open mic every so often. It entails me putting out this kind of crap. And I'm going to find that awesome, like, something that works.
No, that sounds good too.
That's what I'm trying to do.
I might become a prop comic too. I think I've been always wanting to become a prop comic.
Left turn.
Yeah. I think that might reignite my love of comedy when I just start dragging a trunk to all these open mics. I really think that's a goal. I want to be a prop comic.
Comedy can, once you get in there, people go, oh, prop comedy's hack. Guitar comedy's hack. Improv is hack. And you're like, oh, I kind of wanted to try those things, but I guess I won't. If I want to be cool, I'll make ironic observations and ultra personal admissions.
Yeah.
And I'll be woke and righteous.
I'll be what I think a comedian is.
Right.
Yeah, so prop comedy maybe is my new comedy.
You got any openers? You got any contraptions you've been thinking about?
Oh, what was it? The only one I thought of was like, and this is how bad this joke is. I have to preface that. It's like, when like white people say something, they say, oh, I have a black friend. It's okay that I say that. I was going to make like a notebook with a picture of that black friend and his phone number and his email address so that you could get in touch with him. So that that's my friend and he's let me say this thing I'm about to say. So it was like I'd get like a yellow notebook and put a bunch of pictures of my one black friend and like, here's my notebook. Here. I
like racial emergency contact cards.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have one for all the different races. Right.
Totally. It's like, oh, talk to my grandma. She was Hispanic, like here's my 23andMe. I could say this.
I think Mencia would be very interested in this bit.
Oh yeah, that's got hack written all over it. That bit right there. That could go either way.
Racially, not
edgy,
not to,
like edgy
not to
racist
splash
stuff.
The punch in your face, but yeah.
Oh yeah, and also I think that's funny, and some people might think that's offensive. That's also a thing that's like I have trouble with too. It's like I think that's funny, but other people, especially, I think Denver's a little bit more not into that kind of comedy, and I think it's like a nice riding the line of edgy for me.
Yeah, coming from Miami, racial humor was a lot more loose and kind of open, and
Yeah.
I had to really refine things, and jokes that weren't even offensive I had to retool when I got here, just to kind of frame them differently and
Yeah, man.
not do the Jamaican accent all of a sudden, and like, but also, like, I can't be stubborn about that. That's just, there's a certain amount of like, I'm not going to change for comedy, but a certain amount of like, the world is changing and comedy changes with the world. And you have to be up to date with shit, like, to a certain point, unless your genre is not being up to date with shit, which is bigger these days in the MAGA
It could
world.
work, but like, yeah, I think some people say some things, and I just think it makes you sound stupid immediately. And so I don't like when people say certain things that are just kind of like blatantly offensive or just like ignoring how some people can get offended by them. So I do see that side of the fence too.
Were you always
Where
thoughtful for the audiences and stuff?
Not really, because it's like I do think that offensive shit's pretty funny, and I'll say it.
But you're
it's not.
thoughtful in how it
I know
affects.
I know that it's offensive to some people, but I am like staunchly believing that it's funny. So I will do it, but I won't be a part of the act because it doesn't get a good reaction. But it's like, this is funny. I think if you were to loosen up, it could be a little bit more funny. And it's just not the biggest thing in the scene, is that kind of edge walking. Like there's no home for that edginess around here.
Do you think that if you had done exactly what you did in another place and time, that you would have got different results?
Definitely. Like, I went to Houston this year, and I'm like, man, my goofy Colorado bullshit does not work in this mainly black Houston crowd. It's like I was way too cheesy and white for them. And I was like, man, that was another thing where I was like, oh, I have so much more work ahead of me if I want to be better, is that I'm so Denver specific. And it would take a lot of work to get better, because I just fucking was terrible in that room. It was this. It was, you could see the Colorado all over me. And when I got off the material and I was able to be funny in the moment, I got them.
Right.
And so I would have to go there and work hard at getting those crowds that I just don't see in Denver, and figure out why they're not into my fucking cheesy bullshit. But it was so embarrassing, like how corny cornball my shit was for that Houston crowd, which was like a late night, I'd say like early 20s black crowd. Like, it just didn't work. They were not into my fucking...
I mean, those shows are a wake-up call and they're a blessing. I mean, getting to do road gigs and gigs outside of your circle, that's one of the things that makes a great comedian truly great.
Yeah, and it made me feel so defenseless. I was like, man, I thought I was able to handle anything. And then I walk into this...
They disarmed you. You thought you had your comedy sword in hand, and then clunk.
It was just turned to smoke, man, as soon as I swung it. And I had to... Like, I had enough skill to like figure out in the moment how to make things funny and adjust to the situation at hand. So I think if I was in that situation more,
right,
I would adjust pretty quickly, because
you had some comedy bearings to get yourself out of there. But right, that's how you develop that stuff, is by going through it.
But my toolkit was full of a bunch of bullshit that they weren't like, like I had my base funny, but all my tools on my tool belt were like 30% effective. And it was crazy. It was like, whoa.
You were the wrong type of Pokemon.
Yeah, dude. I was a rock type trying to fight a water Pokemon, and I got rocked.
Come on, dude.
Never gonna work.
Erosion.
It's like in Pokemon Yellow when you had to fight Brock with a Pikachu. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Electricity on electricity? Oh, he was the stone. Right. Of course. He had the Onyx. Oh, let's not. I mean, we're talking about dark memories. Let's not get too dark here for the podcast. I thought this was going to be a non-explicit episode.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Poke Talk.
I've done a Pokemon podcast. I'm well. I could do that very well as well.
I'm sure we could segue seamlessly at the.
Yeah. So that, and even seeing that thing when I was in Houston, seeing how much work I had to do, was also going like, I'm not going to commit to doing that, because I'd have to like travel more, and it's just not in the cards.
Especially now.
So
did you worry about, like, before you had a child, like that you were kind of making a choice that this is going to remove me further from comedy, whether I want it or not, but I want the kid? Like,
yeah, I think it's part of it. I think having pulling the trigger on that because we were waiting to have a kid for a while.
Used a
And just
gun to shoot the baby into the wife? Wow.
kind of.
Pull the trigger. Okay, cool.
You know that there are sacrifices, and we did wait a little while because I knew that those are real and I can't ignore them, and so we did wait a little while to have kids. But yeah, like they come hand in glove with sacrifices as long as you're trying to be a good parent. And so I knew that there would be sacrifices, and since he's little and goes to sleep around now, it was easy to go out because when he was sleeping, my wife doesn't need the help. But when he's a little,
So are you too good of a person to be successful at comedy?
I don't know.
Or maybe you could have, if you were faster at it, you could have been shitty
Not competitive
quickly,
enough.
but
Not competitive
right.
enough. I think a little competition or like a competitive edge and confidence would have.
Yeah, have you ever had that thing
well.
where you see other comics and you're like, I can't wait to be funnier than them. I'm gonna destroy this room. These comics can't touch me.
No, it never
It's so
felt
weird,
that
right?
way ever.
Yeah, me neither.
I remember some comic. He said, I asked him about when he started. He said, like, I saw Aaron Urist killing, and I went, and he said, I wanted to do that too. And when he told me that, I thought, I won't say the comic's name, but he was a terrible comedian. And I thought, well, if he could do it, I can do it. And so it was kind of a comment. Yeah, I was like, that guy sucks so bad, I could do this shit. And his was like, that guy's great, I could be that great. And so it was very much like an example of our different perspectives on comedy. And that person's more successful than me. And I think it's because that's how they view the world.
They're looking up and not down, right?
Yeah,
not like,
not getting in their way.
What's the low bar that I can get over? Not like, oh look, there's a hurdle I can jump. Like,
yeah, they're looking. Sky's the limit for them, and that's the way they view the world. And
until
I think
reality will smash them one day.
It probably, especially with comedy, since there's such a low
statistically.
It's like I have a better chance of dying of the coronavirus than being a good comedian who makes a living.
Probably, I think literally you have a better chance of dying by the coronavirus during an open mic live stream.
Yeah.
Than being a success, like at the actual on your closing and the punchline.
Yeah. And I think those are real numbers too, especially now when there's like a million comedians.
Are there a million comedians? Is that worldwide?
Tons. There's tons. Or like people at my level, yeah.
I wonder what the numbers are. It'd be interesting to see the comedy census, if there a way to see like your age in comedy or your commitment level, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool.
I never want to let that kind of stuff. Well, that's the thing. You want to let it deter you when you're not 100% confident, but you do want to find something that no matter the odds, you can excel in. And everyone is good at something. So like literally everyone, if they could find the thing they're good at, could excel at it. But
yeah,
we don't always choose the things we're good at. We don't always find the things we're good at.
Or there's a million people trying to do the thing that you're good at, and they're better at it than me or whoever. And you just can't do the thing you want to do because you don't have the skill to do it. And I think that's what I think and I feel about myself is I don't have the skill to actually make a career of this. I've seen the people who have come and advanced, and I think it was because of reason, and I think it's because they were better and funnier. And I think that kind of breaks my heart a little bit admitting that, but I think it's an important thing to admit is that I'm not good enough to make a career of it.
Yeah.
So
that's a huge thing to admit. And I think that's much further than most people flirting with comedy can like just outright say.
It's tough. I mean,
whether it's true or not too. And it sounds like you were very pragmatic about this at the end of the day. You're someone who is assessing the grand scheme of things, and you are looking at the odds and your happiness in relation to those odds, and you're making very, very deliberate and like not dour, but like
realistic.
Just sobering, realistic choices.
Well, man, I would hope my son doesn't think this way, because the way you describe that to me, I'm like, man, that guy sounds like a bummer.
Aww. That guy makes
I
things
want
happen. He makes the world go round. That guy like provides the basics for society.
my son to be the guy who saw the good comedian and wanted to be that good, not the person who saw the bad comedian and said I could be better than that. Because I think it's a better way of viewing the world. And that's just not the way. Like, there's certain parts about getting older too. It's like I can't change who I am, and who I am is like and it's not going to serve me. Like, my deathbed, I'm going to be like, man, I wish I was more positive, but it's just my genetics or I'm stubbornly holding on to my negative point of view of myself, and God, it's not helping me. But I can't. That's how I live. It's how I think. I can't.
I mean, it's providing
Away
you
from it.
value. I mean, if it's the car you drive around in and that car has given you the nice life, that you have, unfortunately the seat is uncomfortable, and maybe one day you can switch that out or get like a massagey bead thing on your back.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I would just. It's like, yeah, and I'm a generally like. It's not unhappy. It's unconfident person, and I think that it never serves anybody to be unconfident. I think blind confidence could serve you very well, even if you don't have anything backing yourself up. Confidence is like is so important to any sort of success in anything you ever want to do. Is just believing you could do something even though the odds are against you. And I just don't have enough confidence in myself to think that way.
do you think you ever will be able to?
No. There's so many things about getting older, and like having a kid makes you think about death more, and just how soon it is, just like in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And like how much the person I am is who I am, and I can't and I could do things to make it better, but God, man, it's hard to change who you are, and I'm just I have a terrible confidence level in myself that's terrible. And hopefully I can work on it, but it's like I might take it to the grave.
Do you suffer from zooming out too much?
Zooming out? Oh, like thinking about things?
Seeing what can make our lives feel especially short is when we zoom out and see just what a blip we are on the cosmic radar, rather than zooming in to the second to seconds and moment to moment, how life can seem really long. It's so relative.
I wonder.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
it just seems like this is the way having a kid has made me feel like the world. Like I feel like I'm okay with the next stages of life, like getting older and dying. Like I do feel like since I've hit more life milestones, like having a kid and getting married and things, that like death has become more real to me, and I'm getting less afraid of it.
It's so weird.
And yeah, dude.
The more you live, the more you're reminded about death, and then hopefully you end up fearing it less and less.
And I think the kid has had a weird effect on that. Like I feel like having the kid has made me strangely more accepting of my mortality. And I think it's because I've fulfilled my biological thing where I've cloned myself so I could live beyond my death. And so like biologically, I'm feeling a little bit better with not existing. So
that's the gut one. And when we talk about gut and brain, it's like,
yeah,
I have the brain one where I'm like, oh God, I want to create that great work that persists beyond me, and something that can at least survive for a couple of years. So, nothing's going to survive forever. But both of these things are kind of programmed into us, whether they're healthy for us or not. And although a lot of times they can, I mean, it sounds like it's made you feel better, at least by lifting that weight off of you genetically.
I think so. Because when you accept it, it's better. Like when you accept that you're going to die, it's just way better.
Do you think like if you never had a kid, it would be different? Or is that just not a possibility? You always wanted it?
Oh, we're always going to have a kid, but it's just weird how it changes you in a way you never anticipated. And one of it is just having less, I don't know, care about myself and more care about him. Like all my thoughts and care were always on me and thinking about me. And a lot of that has been offloaded onto him. And there's like a piece that comes with that when you care about somebody more than yourself, that I think is something that I've been amazed by how freeing it is to care about somebody more than you care about yourself.
And is it the things that that real estate used to be used up by parts of you that were caring about unnecessary things, or just
Ego.
the stresses, you've realized certain things you were stressed about are no longer uh, bothering you?
My son's starting to walk, and I was like holding his little hands, and he was taking steps and learning how to walk. And that moment was as rewarding as anything I've ever done. And so you realize you get that reward through your kids, and you kind of, and it's better than a lot of the things you've experienced outside of that. And it has nothing. It's like the littlest things. Like he said, "Mom," the other day, and I was like gobsmacked. I was like, it was a crazy feeling that I've rarely had moments of joy for myself as I had for his like little milestones. And so it just changes. Like it just
Wow.
it makes you. Selflessness is a thing that you really have to think about when you're trying to be a good parent. And like I think that's been so helpful. It's just caring about him so much and being so happy for him and his growth and thinking about myself less.
And when you think about qualities of a top comedian, selflessness comes in at
Not great.
Still processing at the several thousand.
It's a very self-full thing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, you could be a great comic and still love your kids, but
I don't know about that.
but it's been great. And I always desperately try not to be too cliche about talking about kid stuff, but everything I said is just 100% true.
I mean, there's
It's
cliche and there's classic. There's just like
it's true.
Things that are timeless for a reason, and
it's awesome.
It's cool to know, because I'm a little ahead of you in the comedy leaving, but I'm a little behind you in the life fulfilling thingies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
I think you get those things from a lot of different sources too. It's not just like,
sure,
kids, this is the only way to do it, but it's just like there's a weird biological reaction that kids give you that is just is weirdly innate. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, this feels great. Like this pleasure, these rewards is just like so natural. It's crazy.
It's weird because talk to me 10 years ago and I'd be like, yeah, it's because you settled. You gave up on your dreams. You had a kid, and now you're just enjoying all this kid shit and convincing yourself that it's the most significant thing in the world. But hey, guess what? It literally is the most significant thing in your world, whether you have a kid or not.
Yeah.
The relationships that you can build when you're not surrendering every spare moment to the gods of comedy. It makes me think that the true winners of comedy are the people that quit.
Yeah. I think that sometimes. I used to work at a Target where a bunch of people, like the turnover was really all the time. And I was like, look at all these losers quitting. Like I'm here working hard. And then at a certain point I was like, wait, are all these people who are quitting this shitty Target the right ones, and I'm the idiot for staying? And yeah. I do feel like comedy is my shitty Target at the moment, where it's like, man, maybe I'm stupid for staying. But
that's a good way to put it. I mean, it's coming back to like finding your relationship with comedy, and nurturing that, just like you've done with everything else in your life. And that's helpful to me. I mean, this is just as helpful to me.
Yeah, I think so.
Talking to someone that's kind of going through it. And
you have to be thinking about these same things, and that's the reason why you do this podcast. It's because you're going through the same things, Yeah,
I mean, if I really wanted to quit, I wouldn't be doing this shit. I would just be like dancing and clicking my heels together. Like, yay! Yeah, no, it's fun. I think there's a nerve here that a lot of people can relate to, even if it's not comedy. I mean, a lot of art, and now more than ever, we are kind of pressured into monetizing anything that we like to do into possibly being the best and famous at it, and putting it on, at least selling it online or doing something. And just the idea of living and just not, contributing anything to the cosmic tapestry of just living a good life. Like, that's not failure. That's not yeah, exactly. As long as you can like search to define what that is. Yeah, comedy is just one piece of the greater puzzle, but it's such an ingrained part of what we are that there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I do love it. I think, and the things I listened to your other episodes, and I think there is a common vein of the love's still there. It's like a breakup. Like just because you're
Mhm.
broken up with somebody or you know someone's not good for you, it doesn't mean that you still don't love them.
Damn.
And so that's how I've I still love it, but it's like maybe it's not good for me.
Yeah, I mean, life is long.
Yeah.
We could talk to comedy again soon, get back together, get a couple drinks one night, and then
Yeah.
who knows? The whirlwind. We're down in the Bahamas. I did a show down in the Bahamas once. It was one of the worst shows I ever did in my life.
Because it's too nice.
Yeah, it was tropical paradise. No one wanted to sit under a tent and listen to comedy. They just finished a fishing tournament and they were gassing up their yachts.
Yeah, they can't. You can't have. It's like having. It's why sports attendance in Miami's not great. It's because there's better things to do. And
And
like
comedy
Wisconsin.
attendance.
Oh, really?
No one wants to sit in a dark room. You could be gyrating your hips in a flashing dark room.
Yeah, Miami's not. I don't think. When I think Miami, I don't think comedy.
We haven't given you reason to, sadly, you know. But I love having come up there. But I definitely feel like I'm from some like foreign country of comedy or backwater neighborhood.
It is weird. It's a weird city to come from.
Yeah,
As comedy wise, at least.
it was great. Yeah, it was great informatively. But looking back, probably could have left a lot sooner. Any regrets? Speaking, we've come back to regrets. Any regrets that we can soothe or ease? Things that are still gnawing or nagging, or something you'll have to remind yourself when those old thoughts start coming back.
Oh, I don't know. I really don't. Like, I think one of the best things about having this conversation was the moment going like, hey, I had that one achievement where I was like being in a good flow state and like being myself. And I'm like, that was worth it. And so I don't really have any regrets. Like I do wish I would have cultivated more friends and stuff and been more a part of the community. I never really ventured into that too much. And I think it hurt me. I just missed out on it. It would have been fun, but I just didn't. I didn't do it. So
That's
I think
a huge
that's one of my
topic,
regret.
right?
Yeah,
The camaraderie
just,
and the behind the scenes stuff, how that influences your comedy experience.
yeah, and I've always kept a arm's length away from it, and I think it didn't serve me very well because I think half of it is the relationships you build, and I have made really great friends through comedy, but I've never been like, I never went to like the Denver Comedy Park Day because I never felt comfortable doing it. But I think people would have been happy to see me there.
I know what you mean 100% with that stuff. Yeah. I would disappear and just feel like, oh, I haven't been out, so why should I? Well, I don't deserve the park day because I didn't go to the open mics and slug it out with everybody the way,
Yeah.
I did all that stuff in Miami and I didn't do it enough in Denver and I didn't forge those. I still am I cherish all the relationships I have made here, but definitely I can understand feeling like kind of an outcast with that stuff. And that's part of the stand-up experience too, is it's such a solo lone wolf kind of journey that it can be hard for comedians to integrate into like a community, which is one of the things Denver is so like amazing at, really, just if not having it, trying to making an effort to cultivate a safe, cool community.
Well, I know when I started, it was just too much drug use. I was like, fuck, I don't want to be at this fucking place where everyone's just doing drugs. So that's why I wasn't a part of it.
About 5 years ago?
I mean, probably still to this day, but
I mean,
then?
Are you talking about like the nonstop marijuana or like actual drugs?
Harder stuff. I mean, like the Mouth House days. Like when I started, there was that house where all the comedians stayed, and I think there was a decent amount of debauchery going on.
Mouth House. I was like, what drug is Mouth House? I've not tried that.
Yeah, and then the city closed it down, or like they had like some undercover cop go in there with the Dropkick Murphy shirt and like catch people doing illegal drugs or something, and they closed it down. Yeah, but it was just like a house where comedians lived and they partied and had shows, and that was going on when I started, and I was like, oh, this is not me. And I still don't relate with that part of Denver comedy where there's a big like, hey, let's take acid and go to a fucking music festival, and I'm like, nope, fuck that.
Right. Yeah, I think not being good at the hang is something that I worried about as well. Like, I'm not good at sitting at a bar and just drinking drinks. Like,
really?
It's not somewhere that eventually I'm like, are we going to go to someone's place and like get comfortable and like do something or watch or just talk in a more cool, like, it's just not, I don't like alcohol enough for it to, or like sports on the bar or whatever is happening, like it's usually just like uncomfortable seating and overpriced drinks, and I'm like not trying to spend a lot of money, and
Yeah.
it just kind of didn't make sense to me. So like I'm not good at the extra lingering, the extra hanging, and like
The
that's
hanging.
when some of the real magic does happen, is when
Yeah,
you
totally.
close out the bar and you guys have nothing to do, but no one really wants to go home, and you go to Denny's and then you hang out in the parking lot for another hour. And you know, if you get some of those times, I think you're lucky in comedy if they can be fun with good people. But then
But I
again,
think
too
you
much of
age
those
out.
times, yeah, you
It's
age
like, do I
out.
want to hang out with a bunch of 20-year-olds in an IHOP parking lot? No. You know?
Right. And in
I mean,
Florida, it was a lot of like 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, and you know,
oh, really? There was an older contingent?
definitely a mixed bag down there. But of course, it skews younger, and those are
Yeah.
always the hardest to hit the street because they have nothing to lose. You know, those are the people who don't mind staying out all night and spending their last dollar because they're still in their parents' house, and you know, there's just less concept of time and value and money.
Yeah. And I've never been down for like, uh, I don't know. What's it called? Making it seem like, oh, the glorification of like, oh, look, we're roughing it, we're poor and stuff. I'm like, well, at a certain point, that gets really old too, you know. And I think that's why also I can't do comedy because I don't want to be romantically living in a studio apartment when I'm 40 because I'm chasing
Right.
some bullshit.
You know, at the same point, as much as I agree with that, I would love to dream of a society that makes it easier to be an artist, where you could survive longer and take longer to get good at art because there were better systems of support in place for society. And you could, you know, there's countries that do that kind of stuff that make it easier to be an artist. There's states that do it. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot easier for me to do stuff here in Colorado than it was in Florida. I mean, I have
Mm-hmm.
healthcare here. You know, I didn't back there, and I got
Oh.
unemployment checks from COVID here, and meanwhile, Florida is a nightmare, and no one's getting
Yeah.
any of their stuff. You
Yeah.
know, so like,
And to your point, like I know if you go down the list of like, oh, here's notable comedians, you could also notably see how they're pretty well off financially and how much it makes it them easy to
I hate
achieve their
that point.
goals. I think it's not mentioned a lot. Like I remember like Pete Holmes going like, yeah, my dad was just like an oil guy. It wasn't a big thing. What do you mean he was an oil guy?
Yeah.
That sounds like a fucking Saudi, like, you know, Saudi prince money you had, and
Yeah,
you're trying to downplay it. And I think that's a common thread amongst a lot of comedians that really makes me
totally.
sad
And the art world
because
in general.
yeah, and so it is a pursuit that is easy to do
If
if
you're a
you do
rich
have the
kid,
security,
yeah,
the
you
security of the money. Like
long
even
gonna
like Kevin
fail.
Hart, like his mom paid his rent for like a year while he was doing
Yeah,
shit. Like
I
it's
mean,
it's it's
right.
pretty
I bet if you looked at all
throughout.
the stories, you're always going to have stories of comedians in their cars, and of course, we love those. But you know, for every one of those, there's a lot more. Like, you know, when I learned Nick Kroll comes from the billion-dollar Kroll security
Yeah,
company or something, it's just like it's it's hard not to make you appreciate them less. I don't want to. I still find Nick Kroll very funny, and I still enjoy him. He delights me. Um, but when you learn that, you know, it's interesting. Like, I guess we're in the kind of media landscape where we really are not separating the art from the artist,
mm.
and we're figuring out where we lie on like what sins you can commit versus what, you know, properties you have as an artist that make you truly great. Of course, we love rag to riches stories. We're never, more than anything, we're never gonna appreciate a silver spoon story as much as a rags to riches story.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the
But they
as
can't help
what
it. You can't help being a rich motherfucker. But
yeah, and some of that, you know, the good schools they went to help them be more analytical, and you know, like it's just, you know, you have a
damn
lot of
it.
benefits to, yeah, it works. I mean, I can't think of I'm sure I could think of many good, you know, did it all themselves comedians, weren't like a rich person. I try not to judge somebody also like, oh, this person's rich, I value them less, or I think like what they
Sure.
like they didn't have to put, they're still talented. I try not to judge people badly just because they're wealthy, but it also hurts my heart to see how ubiquitous, how widespread it is that a lot of comedians who do well is because the fact that parents have money makes it easier for them to do shit.
To fail constantly, right? Until they make
all the
it.
time. Like there's no risk. In fact, like the whole thing where I was like, can I do the risk? Is it worth the risk? They don't have to think about that because they have the safety net.
Right.
And so
which is where like universal basic income and concepts like that do come in and could equalize the field. Yeah, that's definitely one of the many frustrating things that can push you out of comedy and be like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, and also like I remember I was listening to some New York thing. Then they were saying someone was a writer on SNL and they just got it because their dad had asked them to knew Lauren Michaels and asked them to be on it. And I'm like, wow, man, there is a level where it is way easier to get into things because of that wherever station your parents are, or if you're just involved in these certain
right place, the right
groups.
time. Yeah.
Or just the what's it called when you hire people you're related to?
Nepotism.
The nepotism of it, which is not bad. Like I could see how it works. Like if I was in a business and I could hire anybody and I knew somebody's kid who needed the job, I would probably likely give it to them. So I could see how it works, but also it sucks when you're like seeing people like dying to be on SNL or dying to be writers on SNL, and this person got handed this, and they don't get it because they're they're having to like be visible in a giant pack of people in this, and it's just so hard to do. So it's see. I mean, it'll be nice to not think about that maybe.
Right.
That whole world, like
take
if I just
that
not think
part
about
of your brain off. I mean, that pressure.
I wonder if there's yoga politics. Like, am I going to worry about somebody being better at yoga than me? Like, if I was like going to the same yoga studio every day, and it was like an open mic, and there was somebody doing yoga better. I'm like, man, that hack doing all that hack yoga shit.
Because heels touch the ground and the thing.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
it's because his parents went to India and took him once.
Yeah. His parents were rich, so he could do all these yoga retreats and all this shit.
He got a real leg up.
Ooh, good pun.
Well, damn.
But yeah, it's just I try not to think about that stuff too much, but it is something that is very true. It helps if you're rich.
Yeah, that's a general advice to anyone out there. If you have the choice, go ahead and be rich. Because things will generally work out better for you. You'll probably live a bit longer.
Yeah, the percentages just go up. You got a better shot with everything.
And you could always be back, as you said. Comedy's going to be there.
Yeah, and like I said, maybe I'll be best as an old angry comedian, or not angry. Maybe just an old guy. Maybe like Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, the yoga's going to cool you out.
I'll be the yoga comic. I'm like, hey man, don't you hate when people use your mat? Like, I don't know what yoga comedy is.
You're getting in there. Well, cool. Anything else you'd like to impart to the world?
No, I think that's it, man. I think this has been very helpful for me.
Been a good session.
I think so. I don't know. I wonder if somebody listens to this, what they would think of it. If some comedian who's thinking about quitting, what they would think of it. And I don't know. But yeah, I'm in a good place with it. And I think that pandemic's really put things into perspective and give me a taste of it. And it's been beneficial to me. And so I think it's something that I could definitely just continue after the fact, especially because there'll be remaining concerns about getting it and spreading it ongoing until there's a vaccine. So I think the pandemic really helped me make my decision, because it is the most prudent thing to do for my time and my growth as a person, but also just like, hey, I don't want to kill my mom doing a stupid going because I went to fucking Lion's Lair or I went to Comedy Works.
Right.
So I think that will weigh on me. I can't say that I'm going to go one way or the other. Like if I'm just going to defy if I'm still going to go out, even though there's some risk to it, but it does definitely force my hand and makes the decision a little bit easier because I have a valid reason not to go out. It's like, okay, I don't want to pick it up and spread it. And then we're also moving to Aurora, so it's a little bit harder to get to places too. So I think that could also.
Oh yeah, you're doing it. You're doing everything you need to get out of comedy.
Yeah, I've signed papers that make it way harder to do comedy.
Marriage, kids,
house.
A
lot of papers. Yeah, so I have every reason not to, and I think it will happen soon. And then I will waffle and I will relapse, and then I will live in the purgatory for a while, and then maybe I'll just out and out quit after some sort of large failure. that like makes me go like, okay, I definitely need to leave. Like once I hit rock bottom, it's like the analogy of a drug is very apt because I don't think until I hit rock bottom, maybe I won't quit entirely. But I think like being a part timer will probably force me to be a worse comic and bomb more and like it less. And so I think one thing will lead to another. And, entropy, my comedy entropy growth.
Right.
There's a great quote that I love. It says, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. It was some Greek philosopher. I don't know who it was, but I think that's
deep.
a fine. Yeah, man, super deep. I should get a tattoo of it because it's so deep.
It was John Stamos or someone. Yeah.
But no, it's like, I don't need to be sad about it.
Good. You seem like you're in a healthy space for something that is a major life change. So
yeah,
thanks for being real with us, for sharing your journey in and out and through the art of comedy with us.
Thanks for the free therapy.
Yeah, putting my bachelor's degree in psychology to use for once.
Yeah, it was nice. Got a lot off my chest.
Hell yeah. Well, cool, Patrick. Should people follow you if they?
Yeah, sure.
I haven't been plugging people at the end because people don't really have much to plug these days. But you're kind of Blade right now. You're like half comedian, half not comedian.
Then don't. I think that's a good answer. Like, no, don't follow me.
Nothing to follow. Yeah.
Nah, I'll be quitting soon, so I'll be deactivating everything. So don't even bother. Yeah, I'm gonna go garden.
Hot diggity damn. Gardening and yoga for everyone. Well, thanks again, Patrick.
See you later. Thanks for letting me talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Click. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good night.
Today we talked to Patrick Scott, and he is one of the
cutest little kitties in the whole wide world. She's a little kitty, she's so cute. Oh, my kitty. Oh, my kitty. Oh, my kitty. Oh, my kitty. She's my kitty. She's my baby. And I love her. And that's so crazy.